6 p.m. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, could you please conduct the roll call?
Commissioner Bonzal?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Hanley?
Here.
Commissioner Mayer?
Here.
Commissioner Stonehouse? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Here.
Mayor Smith?
Here. Commissioners, we have an agenda for this evening. Do we have a motion on this agenda? Commissioner Davis?
I'll move to accept the agenda as presented.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Bonzal?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. I have one announcement this evening. Glass recycling, believe it or not, is coming up again. So this one is a little bit tricky because it's the first full week of the month when we have glass recycling. So June 7th through 11th, on your handy little calendar that you can find on the city website, or maybe it's stuck to your fridge like me. So it won't be the week right after Memorial Day. It'll be that next week, June 7th. Put your glass out in a bin, no other recyclables that week, and then you can resume everything else single stream after that until the next time. And there also is a new place to drop off glass recycling, and that information is available on the city website. I will make sure to look that up by the time we get to our commission comments later on here. Okay, public comment. I know we have a significant number of public comments this evening, and I believe many of them have to do with the public hearing on the Beacon House, which is item number 4 on the agenda. So I guess we may have to do a little bit of sifting through here to see on Zoom if anyone would like to talk now at public comment, or if they would rather talk during the public hearing. I'm not sure if we have folks on Zoom.
I think we have a significant amount of folks on Zoom.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna have to walk through each number one by one.
Sure.
If you could just ask their name and if they're interested in this public comment. or
Absolutely.
if they're interested in the public hearing.
Okay, so I'll just repeat that for those on Zoom. We will go through one by one and check if you would like to make a general public comment, or if you're here for the public hearing on the Beacon House. Again, that is item number 4 on the agenda, which is a few items down. This is general public comment right now. If you would like to make a public comment, your public comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person, and you must state your name and your physical address.
I'll start bringing them.
Okay, thank you.
First person in is 704 number.
Okay, we have a 704 number. I'm not sure if you wanted to do a public comment. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. I'm guessing most of these are for the Beacon House, but we do need to check.
This is 2351709.
Okay, 235-1709, if you'd like to make a general public comment.
Yes, this is, my name is Dale Moylanen, recently retired Chief Operating Officer with Med Center for Orthopedics and Plastic Surgery here in Marquette. Historically, 20 to 25% of the Beacon House clients were orthopedic related, and now without a Beacon House, patients and their families look for care and treatment at other hospitals outside the UP that are supported by hospitality house type services. And this outmigration of care negatively impacts our local doctors, hospitals, home health services, and rehab centers here in Marquette. It also negatively impacts the non-healthcare related businesses such as restaurants, gas stations, other local retailers. So I'm asking that you support the brownfield amendment to help ensure that the timely completion of our new Beacon House can help keep care in Marquette. Thank you.
Thank you, and could you just state your physical address one more time, Dale? I'm sorry, I missed that.
286 South Shag Lake Drive, Wynn, Michigan.
Thank you.
49841.
Okay. And I'm sure Sean is working on the next one here.
408 395 3167 is one point.
408-395 number. Go ahead if you would like to make a general public comment now. Otherwise, like I said, number 4 on our agenda is for the Beacon House.
This is Steve Mariucci calling from home. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Steve.
I was waiting on the Zoom call. I don't see an invite from the host yet. Should I wait for the host?
You're on. You are live on the meeting right now. If you'd like to make a general public comment right now, otherwise item number 4 is the Beacon House.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Smith and all the commissioners. I really appreciate your time tonight. I've been involved with the Beacon House for a couple of decades now. It's been a lot of work, a lot of fun, and here we are right now trying to build a new Beacon House, and I love every minute of it. And I've asked my family, my wife and my kids at times, if it's okay for me to spend, a lot of money and a lot of time supporting the Beacon House. And they said, Dad, if it's okay with you, if it's something you love, and it's going to benefit a lot of the people in the Upper Peninsula, let's do it. Let's do it. So they said yes. And I've asked a lot of my friends around the country, not only to come in and support with playing golf and being a celebrity, but to write a check. And we've had a lot of response from people that probably will never be in Marquette. But they said, hey, Steve, this is a good thing. This is a good thing, and I'm going to support it financially. And they've given a lot of money for it, and I'm so appreciative. And so tonight, I'm very respectfully asking you, the commissioners, for your help by voting yes on this brownfield amendment. To me, guys, it's a win-win-win situation. It's a win for the patients and their families that come in from all over the place and get good medical care, and it's one less expense, as you know, one less worry for them. It's such a good thing that way. It's a win for our hospital. They get patients coming in that would otherwise go elsewhere, but they come in because they have free housing and they get great medical care. And as you know, more patients, more employees, more tax dollars to the city, that sort of thing. It's a win for the hospital. UP Health System benefits tremendously by the Beacon House. And it's a win for the city of Marquette. There's a certain amount of civic pride that we all can have when we say we are the most generous town in the Upper Peninsula, the most hospitable town in the Upper Peninsula, because we do this for people that come from all over the UP, and we help them out. And that's not to mention all of the economic impact that goes along with thousands of people coming to our city. You might get free housing, but they spend money on food and gas and whatever they need year after year after year. So it's a win-win-win on many levels. I've asked so many people in the UP and around the country, we have asked. And now we're asking you, the commissioners, and Mayor Smith, we're asking you to help us. We need your help. We would love nothing more, God willing, than to maybe open this Beacon House for Christmas this year. I don't know if that's possible, but we would try to do that. We're trying to do that right now. But we need the city to get on board like so many other people have already.
And Steve, that's 3 minutes. I'll need to cut you off, unfortunately, but I do need your physical address.
My physical address, I live in Montecito, California. 15940 Romita Court, Montecito, California.
Thank you. That's your 3 minutes. We appreciate your comments for public comment.
Thank you.
Number is 236-5073.
236-5073. If you'd like to make a general public comment, now would be a time. Otherwise, there will be time and under item 4 for the public hearing for the Beacon House, if that's what you're calling about. Okay, next. Can they only hear me when I say that? When we let them in?
Yes, unless they're watching on YouTube.
Okay.
360-2968.
360-2698, what did you say?
2968.
2968? Would you like to make a public comment? This would be the time to make a general public comment, otherwise we'll have time later under item 4 for the Beacon House. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. How many do we have, Sean?
1 second.
Okay. 869-3131. Now would be a time to make a general public comment, or if you'd rather wait, item 4 will be specifically for the Beacon House.
I would like to wait, please, until item 4.
Appreciate it. Thank you. What's your name, sir?
Thomas Snow.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next one.
This is 919-667-3402.
We have a 919 number. This would be time for a general public comment. Otherwise, if you're here to talk about the Beacon House, we do have a special item number 4.
Yes,
Would you like to talk during the public hearing about the Beacon House, or do you have a general comment for right now?
I have a general public comment for
Okay,
now.
sure. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and physical address.
My name is Sue Holliday. My physical address is 2022 Cherry Street in Marquette, Michigan. Mayor and city commissioners, good evening, and I'm glad to be able to speak tonight on behalf of the Upper Peninsula Rainbow Pride Board. The Upper Peninsula Rainbow Pride Board announces that in keeping with the state of Michigan's COVID restrictions and suggested guidance, Pride Fest will not happen the 19th of June, 2021. What we would like to announce and invite everyone is to share a ride with Pride that's going to happen on the 26th of June from 4 to 6 p.m., initiating and ending at the MMU PEIF parking lot. Look for the feather flyer signs and cars to get into the lineup. There will be greeters to help distribute the procession route, but remember, for safety, this is not a parade, so there might be traffic delays because we must obey all city traffic stops, lights, and speed limits. We are joining forces with the Marquette City Arts Council as well as Social Justice for All to celebrate this week. The ride will consist of decorated or not cars, bikes, or stealth as a procession through the downtown district and streets of Marquette to show our support for the LGBTQA+1 community. The city leaders have already declared June as Pride Month, and we thank you for that. To demonstrate that, flags for the LGBT will fly for the last time on Washington and 3rd Street, as approved by the DDA. What is unfortunate is we will be the last group authorized by the DDA to fly flags, which that to me doesn't help support the spirit of Marquette. We invite you all to join the celebratory event this year, as we could not financially ask anyone to support to hold Pride Fest in Matson Lower Harbor. We are working on that for next year, on 25 June 2022. We promise a spectacular event to show Marquette spirit. We would like to ask the mayor, the city manager, and the commissioners to join us in the fun. We also need a procession leader. Do we have any takers? Many people have already expressed joy that we are doing a ride with Pride. Founded in 2013, the Upper Peninsula Rainbow Pride Board thanks the community and civic leaders for continued support for our nonprofit organization.
Sue, that's 3 minutes. I really appreciate your comments this evening. I will say that our chance to respond to your comments is at the end of the meeting. It's probably going to be a pretty long meeting, but go ahead and send us an email, and I would be happy to participate if I'm available. Thank you, Sue.
Great. All right, I will send it through to the city clerk. Thank you again for letting me speak.
Thank you. Do we have others?
Last phone number, 360-9900.
360-9900, if you'd like to make a general public comment this evening. And I think whoever's on the line, I hear the YouTube echo. If you can, maybe that's us. So now is the time for a general public comment if you'd like to do that. Otherwise, if you're here to talk about the Beacon House, that will be item number 4. We've got a public hearing. You could choose to do that instead. I'm not hearing any comments, so let's move on to the next person.
person is only identified as
Angela, I'm not sure if you, okay. I'm jumping the gun. I don't have a visual. When we,
Yeah. Like what yours
There's also a lot going on the screen.
I know, you're doing great. But I usually have some kind of a prompt where I can see it connecting, and then I know when I can
And
tell.
Angela is now connected.
Okay. Hi, Angela. If you would like to make a general public comment, now would be your time to do so. Otherwise, we will have a chance at item number 4, a public hearing for the Beacon House, if that's why you're calling.
She muted herself.
Okay, so I'm thinking maybe she would like a little later time. Okay, next person.
Carolyn Severson. I'm adding it right now.
Okay.
You should be able to hear us.
Carolyn, if you would like to make a general public comment, now would be your chance to do so. Otherwise, you could, if you're here about the Beacon House, you could talk on item number 4 during the public hearing.
I can either speak now or later, and I'm getting background. I called in, so perhaps I should end the call.
It's up to you if you'd like to comment now or during number 4 for the public hearing. If you're getting some background noise, it may be, if you have YouTube on in the background, you may need to shut that off while you're talking.
Let's see if I mute.
Do you want to talk now or on item number 4 under the Beacon House?
Well, which would work better for you?
If you're here about the Beacon House, I would suggest item 4, but I can't tell you exactly what to do. It's your choice.
Then I'll wait for item 4. That's
Okay.
what I'm here for.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
And Mary Dowling is the last one.
Okay. And Mary, I see that you're connected in. Now is a general public comment session. If you'd like to make any general comments, as you know, we have item number 4, the public hearing on the agenda, which is specifically for the Beacon House. Would you like to speak now?
I'd like to speak on item number 4 for the
Okay.
Beacon House. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mary.
That's it.
Okay, we made it through that one. It's a little bit tricky with the technology is why we're juggling here. And Sean is doing great. It's a challenging situation we're in here. Okay, so public comment is done. We are on to, I've got a couple of presentations. Up first, we have our certificate of appreciation for our city manager, Mike Angeli, who is retiring at the end of the week, believe it or not, after 45 years of service to the city of Marquette. If you could please meet me on the side podium. I've got a certificate here for you. For 45 years in service of the city of Marquette. And I've got some words I'd like to read. I couldn't memorize all of them because you've done so much. And I don't know quite where to look.
You look at me.
I'll look at you, I guess. So I have to say, I'm really glad that we're able to do this in person today. I was wondering a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, if we would have to do this, distance, masked, Zoomed. But we're here today to honor Mike's 45 years of service to the city of Marquette, starting out as a police officer, harbor master, chief of police, and now city manager. You've dedicated nearly your entire life to the city of Marquette. We are eternally grateful for that. Got a few accolades here. So Mike and I first met when I was appointed to the commission in 2017. And I would like to say that your steady guidance over the last several years have been instrumental in helping me navigate many, many challenging situations. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you for listening.
You're welcome. As a commissioner and now as mayor, you've provided sound guidance from the smallest of concerns up to the most difficult of situations. And I've been very fortunate to have your experience, your wit, and your good humor to rely on. You're determined, reliable, reasonable, and a balanced city manager, advisor, and friend. I appreciate that, Mike. So when I had asked you several months ago the accomplishments you're most proud of, I wanted to share with the public some of the things that you had said, because I think you should be proud of these projects. And I wanted to know, when you reflected on your career, what are the things that you were going to think about? So some of the things listed were the new hospital and relocation of the Municipal Service Center, Clark Lambros Park, Heartwood property, Founders Landing parcels, Lower Harbor piling reuse, marina rate adjustment to make that marina more sustainable financially, the Lighthouse Park, the movement and reconstruction of Lakeshore Boulevard, the reconstruction of Wright Street, the Customs House project, The JCI performance contract to reduce energy use and improve city lights, traffic control, heating, and chillers at Lakeview Arena, and many, many more projects. That's a huge list, and I think we've done most of those things in the last few years, completed them. So you've teed those up nicely for us. You've got every right to be proud of those accomplishments. Your work over the last 45 years has helped Marquette to become a leader in the region for innovation, transparency, creative funding by using grants and partnerships, and improving critical city services that our public expects and appreciates. Prior to your work as a city manager, as I mentioned, you served as our chief of police, our harbor master, and a police officer. Your contributions towards public safety in our community are very much appreciated, and your leadership even more so. You've personally contributed to making our wonderful community an even better place to live, own a business, and raise a family. Thank you for your contributions to the city of Marquette, and I hope you're able to enjoy your retirement.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Mike.
This is very expensive document. All right, thanks.
Sean Fritzeboff. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I know that all of you are waiting patiently for Walt to speak and to deal with the Beacon House, so I'm not going to stay here a long time, but I appreciate your comments. I mean, it's very nice of you to say those things. The last almost 6 years has been very challenging, but very rewarding for me, and I've been able to work with many good commissioners and commissions, and we've gotten a lot done. We've spent a lot of money, I will tell you that, but it's all for a good cause, I think, and it has put Marquette more on the map. So I have to thank you all. I really mean this. 45 years is a long time. I had cleaned out my locker down in the police department today, and I had stuff in there, I think, from 1976, and I didn't realize was there, but it's been a long time. And I would be remiss if I didn't also thank my family while I'm here. Of course, my wife, Kay, has been by my side this whole time, well, most of the time. And, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be as successful as I am, and I truly mean that. And I love you, dear. And my children, Mike and Catherine, have been great as well. And I've got spouses and grandchildren. I won't go on from there, but it's been fun. It has, and I've really enjoyed it, and it's been very rewarding. And like I told the new candidate for city manager when you selected her, don't screw this up, okay? After I'm gone. Thank you very much.
Commissioners, if you want to say anything now, you can, or you can wait until the end. I would say, I don't know. What would you prefer to do? Let's do it all at once, either way. Now or later? Later. Okay, we're going to do commissioner comments at the end. So we're going to move on to our presentation here we got Walt Lidla with the Arts and Culture Committee. Thank you, Walt, for joining us. I know that's a tough act to follow here, but but I think you'll do a nice job. We appreciate you coming in person. It's really nice to be able to have you here.
Very good to be here, actually, in
Here's
person.
the microphone. I know they're going to run the presentation.
I know
I'll meet you back up here.
they're running the presentation for me, so I hope that we make our way through this pretty easily here tonight. First of all, commissioners, city staff, all certainly appreciate the opportunity to come in this evening and do this presentation for you tonight in person to do this. And this is for the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee and also the Office of Arts and Culture under the Department of Community Services. And we'll go to the next slide here as we'll move through these at a fairly quick pace. So I will try to I'm going to try not to say next slide. I'll just try to do this. How's that? Does that work? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Let's start with the very important Arts and Culture Office staff. Tristan Loma, also Tina Morin, and Amelia Pruitt. They are the people that really make that office run. And you have some real champs working for the city here and the work that they do. Tonight's presentation in particular was designed by Amelia, who has been working now as marketing and promotions assistant, and you will see her stamp through all of our presentation graphics this evening, which I think have turned out great, and it is a credit to the work that she has done. And also, I do want to extend my thank you to opportunities I've had with working both with Tristan in various projects, and of course Tina, who has negotiated not only a professionally challenging year, but a personally challenging year. And I thank her for her hard work that she does for the city every year. Let's move on to the next slide here and talk a little bit about our committee. There's our latest round of folks. I will be leaving this committee at the end of this month, as my time has come to a close as well. Only just about under 10 years or so, about 8 years that I've done so. Mike's looking over there going, you know, very nice. But our committee is made up of Claire Ellis, Madeline Goodman, Jeremy Johnson, Jamie Weeder, Michael Bradford, Carol Tuchinski, also Rusty Bowers, Michael Reed, and myself as the chair. Next slide, please, and we'll talk a little bit here about our 10-year Arts and Culture Master Plan. When I came on board with the committee, this was one of the first things that was in the works. It was adopted in 2014. It really broke down into 2 initiatives. One was the city's commitment to supporting a robust cultural life and creative economy with an empowered arts and culture office in a critical for a vibrant and engaged and sustainable community. That was initiative 1. The second one was to develop a regional partnership fostering communications and collaboration across the Marquette area's arts, culture, and creative sector to increase contribution and value of Marquette's creative assets. Let's go to the next one here. There are 3 cornerstones in arts and culture in Marquette: partnership and collaboration, civic engagement and education, and economic development planning and resources. We'll go to the next here and start talking about the partnerships. These are the collaborations within the city of Marquette and beyond the city that help develop a more enjoyable creative atmosphere in the city. We'll go to the next one here and talk a little bit more of that. This is just a small list, if you can believe it. If we look at this, there are dozens of groups here that have worked together in partnership with the Arts and Culture Office to create programs of all kinds, all shapes and sizes. And if you look at the list, there are more than just simply arts and creative groups. There are economic development offices. There are independent groups that work together, as you can see the list here. And of course, this PowerPoint will be available if anybody would like to see it. Get a hold of Tina to see it a little more up close. Let's go to our next slide here. Civic engagement is what we would really like to talk about in terms of educational programming. And we'll go to the next one, and we'll talk a bit about at the Marquette Arts and Culture Center, which is in the basement of the Peter White Public Library. There's a creative space. This was really called for in the master planning process, somewhere where people could go to make things, be creative, learn about doing events and activities in our community. And that's where the second part comes in. That's where the administrative services are, which provide assistance, also in line with what this master plan found, with promotions and planning, technical skills, idea generation, and how to do things in the city of Marquette. Exhibit space is also there, which is a city gallery featuring work by local, regional, and national artists. Many shows will be starting up there again soon, so we encourage you to visit if you haven't. And one of the other big things that happens there is senior arts, the senior theater experience, senior visual arts, senior dance, storytelling podcasts have been recorded there, and Letters from Home, another great project. Annual Arts Awards, these will be actually coming up here fairly soon for this year. Since 1997, 45 organizations and 170 individuals have been recognized from around Marquette and the surrounding community for their contributions to the arts in our community. This is one of our very exciting things to talk about this evening briefly. City of Marquette Art Week. For 2021, the theme is Reconnecting Through the Arts. It is happening this year. This is an important part. It didn't happen last year because of COVID. There's new branding. There is new art. This art was created by a local artist for the logo, and it is June 21st to June 26th in the city of Marquette. Believe me, you'll be hearing a lot more about it. Art Week, what is new this year, as I mentioned, is better branding, and there has been grant funding secured for it, meaning there is more money to spend, meaning there are more things that are going to be happening. The annual Arts Awards have been moved into that week as well, and there are several new partners and new events, but one of the most exciting parts is that Increased community input and collaboration. What that means is that in the past, groups would put on things for Art Week, but a lot of times that they were somewhat individually siloed. They didn't really interact with each other. This effort this year has put them all in the same room, in effect, and saying, let's talk about it and how can we all work together, which has strengthened the coalitions and collaborations in the creative community. It stretches the imagination by coming up with new ways of thinking and partnering, and also it is an economic development tool. City investment in Art Week does leverage community investment, grants, sponsors, and private donors. Talk about this in just a second, but it results in not only investment, but increased tourism. It supports arts and craft retail and also development of an audience, not only of creatives from Marquette to come here and create, but to come here and visit and perhaps live here and become tax-paying residents in our city. Economic development, resources, and planning is the other cornerstone of the Arts and Culture Programming and Arts and Culture Office. This is what comes out of that office, and this is what I'm talking about with the staff that is there. Marketing and promotions, organization development, grant writing, lots of grant writing, audience development, technical assistance, which means if someone has an idea or they want to do a festival or they want to do a show, how do we do it? Well, that can be answered at Arts and Culture. Event coordination, those that are designed to happen are helped to be coordinated through the city. Surveys and measurement, which is something I'll talk about in just a second. Databases and directories that are created by people taking part in Art Week and other events and activities, and also program consultation. One of those is the Handcrafted Holidays. This was an online project that created 60-plus artists, put them together, featuring independent local artists through an online shopping directory for the holiday season. And it was a map and listings of creative downtown businesses that was formed in an interactive PDF with direct links to artists' online stores. And this was a global tool to market Marquette to the world. It was there to be able to show you about various businesses and also show you how to find them and how to shop with them. So definitely important. Also a new initiative that is just getting going is Marquette's First Thursdays Art Stroll. Some of you may remember that there was an art stroll tied into Art Week, a group made up of the city, Gracie Gallery, and Mad Goodies Art Studio has created a public and private partnership that creates this, basically it's an online and also an actual physical guide that will be out in the community. I have sort of one of the prototypes here that has the maps of where these places are and where you can go. So on the first Thursdays of the month, you can go for an art walk and support these businesses in the community. One of the other big things that came out of master planning was that they wanted, people said they wanted some sort of online, in effect, a community calendar. That was originally Marquette 365. It is now going to be Marquette Compass, and it will be launching here in the early part of June. It is an online website that, again, is a global marketing tool for the city of Marquette to tell its story with creatives and tell its story with what we have here. And it has a series of breakdowns, but the question was asked, who is it for? And we kind of broke it down into makers, shakers, and players. Makers include independent artists, actors, musicians, writers, arts and culture organizations, festivals. The shakers are the economic development offices, tourist bureaus, arts advocates, local foundations, investors, venues, local businesses. And the players involved are Marquette's residents and people coming to Marquette from neighboring communities, families, children, tourists, visitors, future workforce, retirees to Marquette, students are all served by Marquette Compass. The new resources within it include, instead of just a listing of what's going on when and where, there will be community calendar and stories, updated events and activities going on in the community, opportunities, which include a classified section with job postings, professional development, calls for volunteers and artists, directories that not only serve the city of Marquette, but they also serve the UP and other regions, and creative resources, which also has the information about permits and guidance to do an event, public art information, research and publications, and much more that is under that. One of the big things that we've talked about here before in my presentations has been the cultural trail in the city of Marquette, which is to run along the lakeshore, which is where we already have the established bike path. It honors Marquette's rich history and heritage through education, shoreline conservation, historic preservation, environmental stewardship, and destination tourism. It has already received funding from the Michigan Native American Heritage Fund, and there is some other funding in the works to keep moving forward with this project. And it will be an amalgamation of history, culture, and also basically getting work for local artists for those things that will be created. So this is going to be something to look forward to. We can talk about that, at any time. We'd be happy to talk about it. Although I am stepping aside from the committee, I would be certainly happy to talk about this idea. The other thing that we are looking at from the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee and the office is a genuine bona fide economic impact study. I probably sound to some of you like a loop to recording talking about this, but I've talked about this for several years with this commission to get a customized economic impact study that is true and bona fide and put together by professionals. There will be that study. The study will be happening in the next year. Tina and the staff will be going to the city to ask for the budgeting to do this, and this is to come up with an economic impact study that can show the city and others what the value is to have arts and culture programming. This was identified in the master plan. It will inform the next decade plus's policy decisions, future economic development planning for the city, advocating for arts and culture community, also empowering creative initiatives within the city, identify areas of investment potential, and create a baseline database to understand contribution of the creative sector. This is truly an important thing that will be happening. We're looking for the city's support on that as we get into the fine budget processing. And one of the things I wanted to mention here, and Tina brought this to my attention, which is actually very exciting. This is actually taken from the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs annual report. The city of Marquette was the only community featured in this statewide report from around Michigan as an economic development success story by using arts and culture. And you can see a list there of some of the grants. This is about $148,000 worth of grants that were used, but there was much more. And what it means is people around the state of Michigan and around our region in the upper Midwest are noticing what's happening in Marquette with arts and culture. And it's very exciting to see that combined with what we're going to be doing with this economic development study and impact study. The future of the economy of Marquette depends on its arts and culture. It's a big part of what makes Marquette the cool city that it is, and I continue to ask the commission to consider supporting it. We thank you for supporting the arts, and I certainly want to say thank you to the support that the commission has given us over the last several years. So thank you. Do you have any questions for me or for Tina, who is here this evening?
I do have a certificate. I don't want to forget to hand it over here in the center drawer.
Oh.
For your nearly a decade of service. We certainly appreciate all the work that you've done and continue to do. I'm sure you'll be involved long after you're off this board. You've done a great job.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thank you. I'm really glad you were able to come in person today.
Well, yeah, and I would like to say real quick, if, I'd like to say to you and the commission and to the staff, thank you for the opportunity that you have provided for me to be on this committee. I recommend people get involved in it because it is one of the most active and vibrant committees for the city, and it has a great future ahead of it, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity. And congratulations, Mike, on your exit. And I said, maybe we should just go down somewhere for a coffee. Are there any questions for me from anyone?
Go ahead, Commissioner, if you have a question or a comment. Let's start down with Commissioner Stonehouse and head towards Walt here if there's anything on that.
Walt, as I said earlier in the evening, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping to push this wagon uphill and getting as much done as you've been able to do so. And really serving as an inspiration, I think, for so many other people, the people that will be following in your wake. And that becomes so very critical because it really always comes down to who do you prepare to follow you? Who do you prepare to take the place that you're leaving? Because that's what it's all about. If we have only one Walt Lindell and he goes away and we don't have another out there, we will lose so much. So thank you for taking pains to especially do that too. Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything, Commissioner Mayer?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. Walt, I want to, he's laughing at me. I can talk at times. Walt, I do really want to thank you, though, for the years you've spent working on this committee and for the team that you've been leading on it. You've all been doing a fantastic job, and I really appreciate the presentation here tonight. And I hope that next year we can seriously consider also that economic study. I think that's a great thing we should look at. And I didn't realize Marquette was the only success story in that field that Michigan deemed either. So that's really good to know. Thank you. And again, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Adding the accolades, and thank you so much. As someone who is in the trenches helping get the Public Art Commission up and running and all the tremendous work, and having the honor of hosting the last Arts Awards, what a joy that is. And I really encourage folks, if you have a chance to participate, it's a wonderfully joyous time to celebrate the creators in our community. And thank you, and thanks for your service.
Commissioner Hanley?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you again for the wonderful presentation and all of your service. You've been instrumental in the city in doing all the things you do, and I hope that you keep doing little bits on the side, which I'm sure you will.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I will.
You know, listening to your presentation, it's like, wow, Marquette is so fortunate to have the kind of people that we have that are interested in the arts. You know, the staff, the committee that has done work, like a master plan is a huge accomplishment. You know, but I'm looking forward to the Marquette Compass, the cultural trail, the economic development. We're very fortunate. And Walt, to you, thank you for your time on this committee. You know, you're like a local icon, just because of your multi-talents and because of all of your service. So we will miss you, and I hope that you have mentored your next replacement, as Commissioner Stonehouse says. But thank you.
Yeah, I think all of my colleagues have said it very well, but Walt, truly you are a pillar of the community. I think we're all incredibly grateful for your decade of service to the city. And I think that as Commissioners Stonehouse and Davis alluded to, actually your record of leadership on the Arts and Culture Committee is exemplified by the fact that as you're leaving, so many young new up-and-coming members of our community are helping to take your place, and that you've helped groom that next generation of leaders in our arts and culture community and the city as a whole. So I think that's a perfect encapsulation of the kind of leadership you've brought to the city of Marquette, and I just want to wish you all the best moving forward. As far as the business of the Arts and Culture Committee itself, I'm really excited about Art Week in June. And my fiance and I, she's an artist, she's a musician, will be volunteering there. So, hopefully that'll be a really successful event, and will, as always, bring thousands of people together to enjoy the arts in Marquette. So,
well, I thank you for your comments. I appreciate the opportunity to serve, and I do say that the committee is in good hands. I'm comfortable with leaving, and I know it's time for some new leadership all around, and the arts and culture programming is strong in the city of Marquette. It's moving forward, and I just encourage you to continue your support as a commission and a staff. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Tina. And thank you to the entire committee. We appreciate you. All right, so now we are moving on to a public hearing. I think this is the public hearing for the single lot special assessment roll number 588. This will require a roll call vote. And if I'm not mistaken, my guess is that the majority of folks on this call are for the, we don't have anyone who's called in, so we have written. Do we have any written comment for this public hearing on this special assessment roll? Okay, well, I think I still need to formally open the public hearing, don't I, even though I don't have anyone here? Okay. City Clerk, could you please read the background on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Chapter 40, Section 40-21 of the City Code requires that when an improvement shall have been made by the city upon or in respect to any single premises, the expense of which is chargeable against such premises and the owner thereof under the provisions of this chapter, and is not of that class required to be prorated among several lots and parcels of land in a special assessment district,
An account of the cost to be charged to the owner shall be reported to the city treasurer, who shall immediately bill the owner if known. The city code further requires that when the city treasurer determines that a number of properties have had outstanding bills for a sufficient time, the treasurer shall notify the city assessor, who shall prepare a single lot assessment roll and schedule a public hearing before the city commission on that roll. Impacted property owners on the attached list have received notification of the time and place of the hearing in accordance with Section 40-21 of the City Code. Tonight's public hearing was scheduled during the Commission's regular meeting of May 10th, 2021. The fiscal effect has actually been updated from the original publication of the agenda. It is now $239.79 plus accruing interest and penalties. The recommendation following the public hearing: confirm single lot special assessment rule number 588 and authorize the mayor to sign the warrant. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
All right, thank you. Public hearing is now open. Members of the public wishing to make a comment on the public hearing have 3 minutes to do so. Please state your name and physical address. Has anyone called in the last couple of minutes?
The waiting room is here
For the Beacon House. Okay, that would be item number 4. So seeing no comment at this time, the public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
I move that we confirm the single lot special assessment roll number 588 at the updated amount read aloud today and authorize the mayor to sign the warrant.
And we have a second. Commissioner Hanley?
I second that.
Pro Tem Hill, any discussion? Commissioner Hanley? Anyone else? We do need a roll call vote on this. City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Bonzal?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer?
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Yes.
And Mayor Smith?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. That brings us to item number 4. We have a public hearing for the Duke Life Point Marquette General Replacement Hospital Brownfield Plan Amendment. This also will require a roll call vote. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. An amendment to the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital Brownfield Plan is proposed to support the development of the new Beacon House facility on the brownfield eligible property of the DLP Brownfield Plan. This public hearing was scheduled at the May 10th, 2021 City Commission meeting. As there is no balance in either the DLP or city brownfield eligible activity budget, the eligible activity budget must be amended to reallocate the $450,000 estimate for the Beacon House from either the local brownfield fund or from interest. An additional allocation of $10,000 was included for work plan approval and implementation for a total of $460,000. The allocated is proposed to be taken from the interest line item, which is anticipated to be lower than estimated, given the quicker payback for eligible activities and lower bond interest rates. The amendment proposes to transfer the allocation provided in the original brownfield plan from interest, or if necessary, from the local brownfield revolving fund to provide for reimbursement of environmental eligible activities in an amount not to exceed $150,000 and non-environmental eligible activities in an amount not to exceed $300,000, plus $5,000 for brownfield plan development and approval. The Brownfield Plan Amendment was presented to and approved by the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority at their February 18th, 2021 meeting for review and approval. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, adopt the resolution approving the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital Brownfield Plan Second Amendment for the Beacon House and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the resolution. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. The public hearing is now open. Members of the public wishing to make a comment on the public hearing have 3 minutes to do so. Please state your name and physical address. And I think I would like to do any Zoom or verbal first, so we don't keep those folks waiting, and then we can read the written after.
I'm going to go through the waiting room, and then if we could let Mary speak, and Steve, if he needs to make a comment, and then we can start on the written.
Sure. Yep.
The first one is phone number 360-9900.
360-9900. If you'd like to speak on the Beacon House, now is your chance to do so. You'd have 3 minutes. Need name and physical address.
They're muted. I think they hit *6 to unmute on.
Okay, if you can hear me, if you can hit *6 to unmute on your phone. 360-9900. If you can hear me, if you want to make a comment for the public hearing, you would need to do *6.
I can leave them in and see if they unmute while we're working on everyone else.
Sure.
Angela's up next.
Okay, I was just making sure. Let's see. There we go. We have an Angela. If you'd like to make a comment during this public hearing, now would be your chance to do so. You would have 3 minutes. You need to state your name and physical address. I see that you are muted. If you'd like to unmute and make a comment at this time, now would be your opportunity to do so. All right. And we have a Carolyn.
Yes.
Carolyn, if you'd like to make a comment on the Beacon House public hearing, now is your chance to do so. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and physical address.
My name is Carolyn Severson, and our address is 16820 Holly Blue Road, Champion, Michigan. And I'd like to say that I'm a proud member of the Beacon House Board. I support the proposed brownfield amendment that will benefit the new Steve Mariucci family Beacon House. Beacon House has a huge impact for good throughout the entire Upper Peninsula and well beyond. UP Health System Marquette deeded property to Beacon House at a very nominal cost so that our new building could be built near the hospital for patients and their families. The Brownfield Authority is a conduit for funding the cost associated with removal of contaminated soil, which was necessary prior to the beginning of construction. This process was completed successfully. Approving the brownfield amendment is simply the right thing to do. It will result in the desired legacy for the city of Marquette and will make our completing the building on time possible. I certainly appreciate your consideration in this matter, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much.
And one more person on the line, Thomas Snow.
Okay, I'll wait for him to get in. Thomas Snow, if you can hear me, now would be your chance to comment on the public hearing. We need your full name and physical address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you. My name is Thomas Snow. I live at 1606 Kildall Avenue in Marquette, Michigan. And I just wanted to comment today regarding the Beacon House and Brownfield Fund. And I'm in support of this 100%. I believe the Beacon House provides a great service for our community, and I believe it's a good use of funds for our community and the surrounding communities for folks that come here for medical care. I've personally benefacted and used an organization like this when I was young, and I saw what it can do to a household. It keeps people from going into bankruptcy. It keeps people from having to deal with things when they're away from their home. And I believe that this is something that would be useful and continue on, and it's been a part of our community and a staple in our community for many years. And I believe it's an important thing that we need to see continue and create alignment and continue to allow people to come here for medical care because we have access to resources and facilities for people to use. It's pretty sad when you see people having radiation treatment, but they're living out of their cars and coming down here from out of the area. And it's just not a realistic situation for a lot of folks to stay in a hotel or what have you. And this provides that home away from home when they're going through something significant in their lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas.
And then Steve, Mariucci, and Mary Dowling are still on the Zoom call if they'd like.
Okay.
I'd like to let them go.
Yeah, if you want to let them in one at a time, and we'll see if they wanted to make.
They're both in, so they should be able to hear us.
Okay, how about we'll start with Steve Mariucci, if you would like. Now would be a time to talk during the public hearing. I know you spoke earlier during public comment, so it's up to you if you want to speak again or not. Okay, and then Mary Dowling, Steve, oh, there you are, okay. Steve, if you could state your name and physical address again, and then you would have 3 minutes to speak if you choose to do so during the public hearing.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Steve Mariucci, I'm at 15940 Romita Court in Montesrino, California. I am from Iron Mountain, and I've lived in Marquette, and I've been heavily involved, as you know, with the Beacon House for a couple of decades. And I spoke earlier in the general comments, but I won't take up all of my time. But I just want to thank all the commissioners, Mayor Smith, everybody for taking time tonight to hearing us and listening and learning more about our situation at the Beacon House. It's such an awesome project, and we have been working diligently for years to get this new Beacon House built. There's so much support. It benefits so many people, including the city of Marquette, but mainly the people that need it the most, the people that need health care and have a tough time paying for it, and their families are in a tough spot. Went through it myself, and many of us have. And so we just urge you to realize the importance of something like this for our city, for our town, and for the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and vote yes on this brownfield amendment. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. And I've never been more proud to be a part of any charitable foundation or function or entity. This is the most important thing to me right now outside of my family. And I hope that you guys and gals can see the importance of the Beacon House and voting yes for this, because we just need to get it built. There's so many people that need it right now. They need it. And we hope to God that we can build it as soon as possible, maybe open for Christmas. What a great Christmas gift it would be for us to get this thing completed. And we need more help. We've gotten so much help and so much interest to date, but we need your help. We need the city's help, the commissioner's help by a yes vote. And then, man, we are on our way. You can get us over the goal line, so to speak, and really help us get this accomplished on time. So thank you, every one of you. Thank you. There's so much support out there. I'm just thanking you for listening to the many people that have emailed in and written letters, and will call in tonight. Thanks again, and I can answer questions if you'd like me to.
Thank you, Steve. And we've got Mary Dowling on. I think she's the last one who called in. Mary, if you want to state your full name, physical address, and you would have 3 minutes to speak. You would have to unmute yourself. Do you think she can hear me?
I don't see why she wouldn't be.
Okay.
Oh, she's unmuted.
All right, Mary, go ahead. You would have 3 minutes. State your name and physical address.
Thank you so much. I'm Mary Tavernini Dowling, CEO of the Hospitality House of the UP. I live at 175 Bayou Street in Marquette. Thank you for this opportunity to explain the uniqueness of our situation and quell any concerns about setting a precedent. But first, I want to ask you to think of someone you love and imagine what you'd do to help them if they were faced with a life-threatening illness. I imagine that you do everything in your power to be with them, comfort them, and give them access to the best medical help available. Peter Frank's parents didn't wake up one morning knowing that their son would decide to hide in a leaf pile to jump out and scare his friends. They didn't know that another boy would drive by through the leaf pile, not knowing Peter was there, and crush every bone in his body. What they did eventually know is that the Flight for Life helicopter would bring him to Marquette, where the most highly skilled specialists in the region would try to save his life, and that they wouldn't leave his side while waiting for answers. Peter Frank's parents spent over a month in Marquette at Beacon House. Peter lived and eventually healed from all his injuries. He called me last week to tell me that he survived because of the incredible medical care, but also because while in a coma, he knew his parents were with him, willing him to come back to them and to live. We need Beacon House for Peter Frank's parents and hundreds more like them. Beacon House is under construction with an added $1 million plus expense because of the brownfield land it's being constructed on, the only land available to us. We didn't seek out the amendment to the brownfield agreement, but when it was presented to us as an option by the environmental specialists, engineers, and brownfield consultants, we were thrilled that they considered it appropriate and just. We were under the impression that the city was in attendance at the meetings from the beginning and are very truly sorry if that wasn't the case. But tonight I implore you to remember that approval of this amendment would simply expand what was originally agreed to with the hospital, allowing us to be able to inadvertently recoup some of those costs that it took to make this land safe to build on. Over 900 residents of the city of Marquette have shown support for us by donating their hard-earned money to this cause. They understand who we are to this community, and they want to see us open soon. They also understand the economic impact we make on the city and believe that we're an upstanding organization that enhances its financial well-being by playing a vital role in the healthcare industry here. The approval of this amendment would mean that we would be able to open our doors by Christmas of this year, not next. The hundreds of families that will stay at the new Beacon House will thank you in the future by shopping here, filling up gas tanks, and eating in restaurants. Some may even move here, buy houses, and pay taxes because they witnessed the extraordinary hospitality of the city of Marquette. This opportunity to move Beacon House forward is right here, right now. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Do we have anyone else on for spoken public comment? Okay, and I should say it's for the public hearing, not for public comment. Okay, and I know we have many written comments. I think the city clerk is ready to read those. And then at the end of how we're going to do that, we can circle back and see if anyone else has called in. Is that a good plan? Do you want me to set it up, or do you want to explain what you've done with these comments, city clerk?
I can kind of explain our process.
Okay, perfect.
That works for you.
Yep.
We did have quite a few comments in thanks to Sean for helping me organize them physically. And in consultation with the city attorney, Suzanne, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But due to the sheer number, we were able to kind of identify form letters of sorts. And there are a couple of form letters that several people sent in identical versions of. So in that case, we are going to read those letters and then just list the names and addresses of the people who submitted them, if that works for everybody. And that said, we also have several unique letters. So if everybody could just bear with me, we'll move through it slowly. I'll also say there's a handful of names that we're not going to say. I think we had 3 letters that did not have addresses at all, and a couple of letters that had P.O. boxes rather than physical addresses. So those are just going to get skipped. Starting with the unique letters, this is from Christian Palamaki, 1613 Kimber Avenue in Marquette. Dear Mayor Jenna Smith and City Commissioners, I work and live in the city of Marquette. I am sending this email to voice my support of the proposed brownfield amendment that will benefit the new Beacon House. The Beacon House provides a vital service to Upper Peninsula residents in need of a place to stay while they or a loved one gets the medical care they need. The Beacon House has been a part of our community for many years. With the move of the hospital to its current location, it necessitated that the Beacon House also relocate to be as close to the hospital as possible. From a property tax perspective, the prior location is now a hotel, which pays taxes and gives visitors another option to stay in the city of Marquette. The new Beacon House will complement the services of our healthcare providers and hopefully increase the number of patients that choose to stay local rather than travel out of the UP to other providers. Thank you for voting yes to the brownfield amendment so that the Beacon House can open as soon as possible. Next, this letter says, my name is Cheryl Hosking, and I live at 17.5 East Nicolay Boulevard, Marquette, Michigan, and I 100% approve the city's decision to approve the brownfield amendment to go to the Beacon House. The economic impact of the city is enormous. The city should be proud of this decision on my behalf. My name is Carissa Hosking. I live at 865 Preserve Drive in Marquette, Michigan. I 100% support the city's decision to approve the brownfield amendment to go to the Beacon House. Having a place like the Beacon House is such an important part of our community for so many people. It is a comfort to know that you don't have to worry about where you're staying when a loved one is in the hospital. Also, to not worry about costs of a place to stay is a burden lifted off so many. Please consider the Beacon House as your choice for the brownfield amendment. You're helping so many families near and far. My name is Donna Ayat. My home address 361 West Park Street, Marquette. Having the Beacon House offers a more complete, convenient, comforting, and affordable hospital experience for patients and families across the UP and beyond. It could make the difference between someone having healthcare needs met here or going to another facility. This fine accommodation has proven to be necessary and has been missed for the past couple years. I vote yes on the brownfield amendment, which will help to support and sustain the Beacon House. Thank you. Dear Mayor Smith and Marquette City Commissioners, I am writing this letter in support of the proposed brownfield amendment that will be a big help to the new Steve Mariucci family Beacon House. Beacon House is a vital service, not only to our local community, but to the entire Upper Peninsula as well. The organization directly impacts our local economy through the money they spend, but also provides a vital and compassionate service to people in medical crisis. Because of the work that Beacon House does, many patients have access to the medical care provided by our local medical professionals that they otherwise might not be able to afford. Travel and lodging costs are a major problem for those not from the local area. Let's keep our healthcare community thriving. Please consider voting yes to the brownfield amendment so that Beacon House can open by Christmas. And that's signed Patricia Case, 1279 Lakeshore Park Place, Unit PB in Marquette. My name is Michael Fedrizzi, and I reside at 490 Bishop Woods Road, Marquette, Michigan. I'm writing in support of the Beacon House and what it offers to family members with loved ones that are receiving health care in our community. I'm writing to support the city's decision regarding the brownfield amendment that will also help the Beacon House. The new Beacon House will simply help keep care at our local hospital. Those making decisions on where to get the care will decide to come to our community, especially if their loved ones can be near them. As you know, hospitality houses such as the Beacon House keep families together and have a positive impact on recovery and healing. This is a win-win for the patient and the family. Patients will decide where they want to go for care. The Beacon House will influence them to come to our community and have their families near them. This will be an economic driver should they decide to receive their care here. This will keep our hospital financially strong and hospital staff secure, which in turn keeps our community strong as they live here and spend their money here. This is where they buy groceries, gas, build homes, buy cars, etc. Having the Beacon House will make our community stronger. Please vote yes to help the Beacon House continue their efforts to provide comfort and support to families in their time of need. It's the UP way. This letter is from Susan Legale, 609 Lakewood Lane. Marquette, Michigan, it says, Dear Mayor Jenna Smith and City Commissioners, I am writing this letter in support of the proposed brownfield amendment that will benefit the new Steve Mariucci family Beacon House. I've been involved with the Beacon House since its beginning when it was part of the hospital auxiliary back in 1990. Over the last 31 years, Beacon House has been the deciding factor to many thousands seeking medical care in our community over the prospect of going someplace else, where there are no services such as our home away from home. We have, over those years, provided lodging for many from our own community, such as an elderly person who no longer drives, or maybe that young mother who needs to be close to her premature newborn to provide nourishment and comfort. The Upper Peninsula is a special place where the term neighbor has real meaning. We know each other, we take care of each other, and Marquette has always been the hub of that special kind of welcoming and caring. Let's keep our healthcare community thriving. Help us to promote Marquette as the beacon that it has always been. I thank you for voting yes to the brownfield amendment so that Beacon House can open by Christmas. My name is Sean Clement, and I live at 25 Sycott Street, Marquette, Michigan, 49855. I support the Beacon House because of the positive impact they make on the entire UP, as well as our local community. I'm writing to encourage the city to vote yes to approve the brownfield amendment. Please support this to help the Beacon House provide support and comfort to those in our community undergoing a medical crisis. Thank you for your time and consideration of my thoughts. My name is Nicole Ayatz, and I live at 1930 Summit Street, Marquette. I support Beacon House because of the positive impact it has for our community. As an RN at UPHS Marquette, I've seen how important the Beacon House is for many families. Relieving the burden of a place to stay in the most difficult of situations is such a blessing for so many people. I'm writing to support the city's decision to agree to this brownfield amendment, which will help the Beacon House. Please vote yes to help Beacon House continue their efforts to provide comfort and support to people in medical crisis. And this one is from Jack Bergman, whose address provided is 566 Cannon House Office Building in Washington, D.C. Dear Mayor Jenna Smith and City Commissioners, I write to request the full and fair consideration of the Brownfield Amendment Plan to benefit the new 27,000 square foot Steve Mariucci family Beacon House on 7th Street in the city of Marquette. This $5.4 million endeavor proposes to assist thousands of patients and families from not only the city of Marquette, but throughout the entire Upper Peninsula. The Beacon House is a community-based collaborative effort that ultimately contributes to the health and well-being of all residents of the UP. Additionally, the project will continue to have a positive economic impact in our region for many years to come. Marquette is fortunate to have a vibrant and responsible Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, MBRA. The MBRA has contributed to the positive growth the city has experienced over the past 10 years from not only an economic perspective, but also an environmental and community health perspective. I respectfully ask that you consider supporting the MBRA amendment plan, which not only provides access to brownfield funding, but also allows the Beacon House to continue serving the needs of our community. Dear City Commissioners, my name is Renee Prince, 3023 Island Beach Road, Marquette. I'm a member of the Beacon House Board of Directors and a volunteer for the past 18 years. I volunteered at the front desk 4 days a week for 10 years and am currently the bookkeeper. During these years, I have seen firsthand the impact Beacon House has on patients and families. The first person I helped was checking out after being with us for 5 months. Her husband was the patient and had been in and out of ICU during this time. She was incredibly grateful to Beacon House for taking care of her needs while she was beside her husband during his long and difficult recovery. We have offered hospitality to thousands of families with their own stories since we opened our doors in 2002. We understand a patient's recovery is impacted by the proximity of their loved ones. This is where Beacon House comes into the picture and gives the family one less worry. Please help us continue our mission to provide a safe place of peace, comfort, and compassion to the families of the Upper Peninsula by supporting the Brownfield Amendment Plan. And this is actually a written comment from someone who has called in previously, Mayor. I don't know if you want me to just skip that.
They called in
This
during the
is someone
public
who
hearing?
provided comment during the public hearing.
Okay, then skip it. Yep, you get one time.
And this is Dr. Ralph Archibald, writing from 1 SE Shanika Drive, Summerfield, Florida. Mr. Robbins, my wife and I are supporters of Beacon House, and we reside in Marquette County on Lake Michigamme for several months each year. My parents were from Negaunee, and we are very much concerned that further funding of the new to-be-constructed Beacon House project can be supported by positive commission actions on Monday the 24th. We're aware that the building site was contaminated. Cleanup was required prior to beginning construction of the new Steve Mariucci family Beacon House. The Brownfield Authority was the conduit for the funding. It is a substantial amount of money, and I believe Beacon House should be reimbursed as this project has UP-wide impact. Thank you for conveying our sentiments and support. This one is Dear Mayor Jenna Smith and City Commissioners. I'm writing this letter in support of the proposed Brownfield Amendment for the Steve Mariucci family Beacon House property. The Beacon House has been a vital service to our local community and to the citizens throughout the Upper Peninsula. The Beacon House is part of why Marquette has emerged as the medical hub of the UP. The Beacon House continues to be a needed part of medical infrastructure that will allow medicine to flourish in Marquette. Because of the work they do, many patients over the years have had access to medical care provided locally that they otherwise might not be able to afford to receive. Let's keep a focus on compassionate healthcare in our community by supporting the Beacon House. Thank you for voting yes to the Brownfield Amendment. Sincerely, J. Brian Dixon, MD, address 1414 West Fair Avenue, Suite 190. My name is Ray Hosking, and I live at 17.5 East Nicolay Boulevard in Marquette, Michigan, and I support the city's decision to approve the Brownfield Amendment to go to the Beacon House. The city benefits every time people come to our city, and the economic impact is enormous to Marquette. It will also help put the Beacon online a couple of years early. Thank you for your consideration, Ray. This is from Jerry Irby, writing from 331 Mesnard. Please accept this correspondence as my request that Brownfield funds not be afforded to the nonprofit Beacon House. When you look at the onset of BFD funding, it was used effectively to assist in the growth of Marquette. It was used to pay back the citizen taxpayers for their commitment to those growing businesses. It's also important to note, among other things, to felicitate the implications plan relating to environmental distressed areas that may be prescribed by law. And it's important that the commission abides by that authority. Jerry Irby, previous mayor, City of Marquette. To whom it may concern, the community should do all they can to support the Beacon House. I've been working to support them for many years through their fundraising efforts at the Marquette Golf Club. Great cause. Ken Ruska, Marquette Golf Club Board of Directors, 1680 County Road 492. This is from Cynthia Parker, 1728 Elm Street in Marquette. I'm sending this letter in support of the proposed Brownfield Amendment in support of the Steve Mariucci Beacon House. As a nurse at UPHS Marquette, this is a very important project for all of my patients and their family members who come to our city for help. Since the old Beacon House closed, it has been difficult for those coming from out of town. Dear Mayor Jenna Smith and City Commissioners, I'm writing this letter in support of the proposed Brownfield Amendment that will benefit the new Steve Mariucci family Beacon House. Beacon House is a vital service to our local community and to the Upper Peninsula. The organization directly impacts our local economy while providing a vital and compassionate service to people in medical crisis. Because of the work they do, many patients have access to the medical care provided by our local medical professionals they otherwise might not be able to afford to receive due to travel and lodging costs. Let's keep our healthcare community thriving. Thank you for voting yes to the Brownfield Amendment. so that Beacon House can open by Christmas. It is signed Nicole Christensen, 1308 Cleveland Avenue, and then beneath that letter she's written, "This is such a crucial and important service provided to the entire UP to the benefit of Marquette. We are lucky to have the Beacon House and encourage you to vote yes." And finally, dear Mayor Jenna Smith and City Commissioners, I am writing this letter in support of the proposed brownfield amendment that will benefit the new Steve Mariucci family Beacon House. Beacon House is a vital service to our local community and to the Upper Peninsula. The organization directly impacts our local economy while providing a vital and compassionate service to people in medical crisis. Because of the work they do, many patients have access to the medical care provided by our local medical professionals they otherwise might not be able to afford to receive due to travel and lodging costs. Let's keep our healthcare community thriving. Thank you for voting yes to the brownfield amendment so that Beacon House can open by Christmas. This is signed by Charlene Christensen, E3694 Old M28 in Autrain. And then beneath the letter, she's written, whether we live in Marquette or anywhere in the UP and surrounding states, the Beacon House is a great service to all, and the city of Marquette benefits greatly from this. So that is the compilation of original or unique letters that we've received. Moving on, I normally don't get the opportunity to hold the camera for this long, so this is a good change of pace. So I will read the first one of this, and then I will read the names and addresses of the others who had submitted the same comment. It's an email. My name is Mike Sadler, and I live at 11 Blue Ridge Street, Marquette, Michigan. I support Beacon House because of the positive impact it makes on our community and across the UP. I am writing to support the city's decision to agree to this brownfield amendment, which will help the Beacon House. Please vote yes to help Beacon House continue their efforts to provide comfort and support to people in medical crisis. All the best, Mike. And then the same letter had been submitted by Scott Koski at 2020 West Grove Street in Marquette, James Gwynn, 1512 Fitch Avenue in Marquette, Colleen Posey at 1760 Harborview Drive in Marquette, Jane Wanberg at 1616 Kimber Avenue in Marquette, Christy White at 1306 2nd Street in Marquette, Cassie Van Abel at 1019 Spruce Street, Marquette, Katrina Matala, 523 Spruce Street in Marquette, Courtney Ranta at 608 North 7th Street in Marquette, Nicole Marshall at 1103 Altamont Street, Marquette, Sydney Bodette, I think, 217 West K in Marquette, and Corey Hanitz at 448 McMillan Street. Apologies on that pronunciation. And then, let me take a drink of water. So the rest of these forms that we have are identical, and I'm going to read the one and then read the list of names similar to what I just did. It is a longer list of names, and I apologize ahead of time for mispronouncing everyone's name. Dear Mayor Jenna Smith and City Commissioners, I am writing this letter in support of the proposed brownfield amendment that will benefit the new Steve Mariucci family Beacon House. Beacon House is a vital service to our local community and to the Upper Peninsula. The organization directly impacts our local economy while providing a vital and compassionate service to people in medical crisis. Because of the work they do, many patients have access to the medical care provided by our local medical professionals they otherwise might not be able to afford to receive due to travel and lodging costs. Let's keep our healthcare community thriving. Thank you for voting yes to the brownfield amendment so that Beacon House can open by Christmas. And that letter was submitted in a couple of different formats by Christina Adams at 232 Timberlane in Marquette, Ron Aho, 151 Ridgewood Drive in Marquette, Cindy Aho, 151 Ridgewood Drive in Marquette, Joe Amundsen, 6418 U.S. Highway 41 South, Diane Anderson, 39 Hoist Road in Negaunee. I'm gonna amend this and just say I have the cities on here, but I'm just not gonna read it if they list the mailing address as Marquette.
Thank you.
Diane Anderson, 39 Hoist Road in Negaunee. Kay Anderson, 1540 West Ridge, number 24. Jim Anderson, 30 Elder Drive. Melissa Anderson, 35 Specker Circle. Wendy Anola, 2615 County Road, PBG in Ishpeming. Jennifer Arguros, 27917 Hopkins Drive, number 128, Novi. Jamie Armstrong, 567 Lakewood Lane, and Jessica Armstrong, 567 Lakewood Lane. Janice Bartle, 808 Maurice Street in Ishpeming. Teresa Bell at 378 County Road, KCH in Marquette. Elise Berg, 1206 North 8th Street. Jolynn Blackburn, 1026 Lincoln Avenue. Pamela Blondo, 725 Yalmer Road, Scandia. Lisa Bond, 411 Beckman, Scandia. Natalie Bordson, 2827 West View Drive. Linda Boyle, 2412 Cherry Street. Kelly Brunell, 1621 Woodland. Brianna Cadigan, 2851 Cedarville Drive. Jessica Chaperone, 51 Oakview in Negaunee. Kaylee Childress, 117 Buffalo Road in Negaunee. Christine Clifford, 813 Silver Creek Road. Rhonda Cochran, 1205 West Avenue. Christiane Collins, 1205 West Avenue. 1663 M28 East. Sorry about that. Deidre A. Collins, 123 Blemhuber. Joan Cowell, 205 Taylor and Gwynn. Heather Cromell, 1310 Pioneer Road. Isabella Dahlstrom, 119 Chocolate Downs Golf Drive. Zach DeForge, 265 Northwoods Drive, Apartment C. Linda Desormier, 1540 West Ridge Street. Diane Dodendorf Rice, 942 Hungerford Avenue in Negaunee. Anna Dreyer, 1100 North 3rd. Angela Duchesne, 405 Bay Denock Street in Negaunee. Denise Elizondo, 1101 North Front. Christine Emmendorfer, 900 North Lakeshore Boulevard. Angela Evans, 1414 West Fair. Beth Felt, 620 Brookfield Drive. Christina Ferrara, 533 Center Street. Kay Freeman, 1540 West Ridge, Apartment 14. Polly Friend, 209 Sandstone Drive. Jordana Fewis, 553 Green Garden Road. Jacqueline Gallagher, 2839 Northcrest Drive. Julie Giacchino, 444 Lakewood Lane. Stephanie Gordon, 115 Palm Street. Neil Greenleaf, 1805 Gray Street. James Grigorich, 320 Chamberlain Street. John Gumville, 501 West Baraga Avenue. Adam Gurnay, 434 Jackson. Terry and Annette Gustafson, both at 2462 West Fair Avenue. Paul and Mary Hataya, both from 52725 Boston Road in Hancock. Heidi Hastings at 1080 County Road PD in Ishpeming. Catherine Herbert, 375 County Road PDJ in Ishpeming. Joyce Herman at 1540 West Ridge, Apartment 20. Carol Hill, 1538 West Ridge. Marjorie Hockstad, 1536 West Ridge. Molly Holsworth at 1170 County Road AJ in Champion. Lori Howe, 1538 West Ridge. Mary Howco, 524 Woodvale. Michael Huff at 684 Duncan. Barbara Hyde, 155 Olson. Chelsea Heary, 755 Maurice Street in Ishpeming. Apologies. Huff at Duncan Avenue in Ishpeming. Hyde at Olson Road in Gwynn. And then Chelsea Heary, 755 Maurice Street in Ishpeming. Danielle Jacobetti at 197 Sunset Drive in Negaunee, and Chrissy Jansen, 108 Briarwood Drive. Heather Ann Jarvis, 1106 Logan Street. Michelle Johnson, 1120 Kewadin Street. Lori Jokinen at 135 Niji Road in Negaunee. Leah Costin, 3681 County Road 456 in Scandia. Franny Kelly, 1707 Kimber. Marlon Kilpatrick, 222 West Michigan. Olivia Kep, 713 West Ridge. Jody Kucharik, 70 Edgewood in Harvey, it says. Kelly Kieran, 26 East Nicolay. Kimberly Laforet, 317 East Arch, Apartment 2. Dan LaJoy, 104 Huron Court in Negaunee. Jacqueline Lassich, 1075 Merlin Lane. Thomas Latorno, 920 West Bluff Street, Apartment 2. Cassandra Laturno, 1414 West Fair Avenue, Suite 235. Zachary Leonard at 385 Bishop Woods. Debbie LaVisca, 35 Forest Drive in Negaunee. Susan Lezak, 1913 Bancroft. Annette Lohman, 613 North 4th Street in Ishpeming. John and Bonnie Longhe, I believe, at 183 Channing Road in Crystal Falls. Tammy Luoma, 175 County Road PAG in Ishpeming. Robin Mackey, 214 West Prospect Street, Apartment A. Paul Macanos, 4315 West Mishabay in Manistee. Jeff Marceau, 1916 West Ridge. Natasha Marietti at 1785 Stoneville Road in Ishpeming. Angelise Tammy and Gianna Marinos, all three writing from 4315 West Misha Bay in Manistee. Linda Marshall, 129 Valley Road in Negaunee. Renee Martin, 2625 Grove Street. Patricia Martin, 334 Harrison. Denise Matson, 1509 Birch. Monica McLaughlin, E1397 State Highway M94 in Scandia. And Lionel McLaughlin, 425 Blemhuber. Jacqueline Manhennick, 1532 West Ridge Street, number 29. Irmgard Miller, 34 Oak Hill Drive. Joan Miller Beauchamp, 816 Camelot Drive in Negaunee. Jean Morrison, 213 Terrace Street. Alex Munson, 206 North Road in Negaunee. Brandy Neese, 502 Hillside Drive. Sherry Noddle, 369 Harrison. Sally Nystrom, 1538 West Ridge, Apartment 23. Jennifer Ogia, 748 Cooper Lake Road, Nishpeming. Margie O'Keefe, 113 North 5th Street. Ann and John Parent, both writing from 235 North Basin Drive in Negaunee. Dr. Ashley Parent, 638 Lafayette Avenue, Northeast, Apartment 2 in Grand Rapids. Michael Parks, 342 East Prospect. Shelby Parmenter, 1540 West Ridge, number 19. Kristen Parnish, 1982 Orchard Street. Lauren Peterman, 1003 West Ridge, number 37. M. Clarence Peters, 1538 West Ridge, number 10. Crystal Phillips, 219 East Johnson Street in Ishpeming. Deanna Place, E2218 Dearton Onoda Road in Dearton. Dave Poppy, 902B Garfield, number 20. Stacy Powers at 1512 Birch Avenue. Valier Prusy, 701 Prince Street in Negaunee. Sherry Radabaugh, 2293 Diorite. Brian Rasmussen, 2300 Presque Isle Avenue. Peter Ravello, 1907 Deer Lake Avenue in Ishpeming. Felix and John Richer, both writing from 1538 West Ridge Street, number 9. Loretta Roncaglione, 886 Palms Avenue in Ishpeming. Carrie Sanderson, 222 West Michigan. Judy Sandona, 1538 West Ridge. Nancy Sondi, 1538 West Ridge, number 11. Jenny Scott, 157 Midway. Holly Sykott, 308 North Bertrand Lake Road in Gwynn. Jaden Smith, 413 North Pioneer in Negaunee. Megan Snively, 1010 Superior Street. Paul Specker, 824 Grove. Jessica Stagliano, 420 Croy Street in Negaunee. Charlotte Stearns, 285 Gold Street in Ishpeming. Allison Sundberg, 211 West Barnum in Ishpeming. James Sorrell at 416 West Avenue. Sarah Sutter, 1414 West Fair Avenue. Dina Sved, 1420 Cox Avenue. Cole Talbot, 503 Hillside Drive. Catherine Tomei, 123 Pinewood Circle in Plymouth. Michelle Toyris, 429 Rainy Creek in Negaunee. Elizabeth Tuma, 1414 West Fair Avenue. Kim Uren, 220 Rail Street in Negaunee. Robert Van de Zand, 36 Anthony Drive in Gwynn. Kathleen Vessels, 410 West Michigan. Sue Ellen Wacken, 116 North Birch Street in Gwynn. Barbara Weinrich, 121 Poplar Trail. Lindsay Wenger, 372 Little Lake Road. Elizabeth Withy, 1536 West Ridge Street, Apartment 6. Patricia Wolf, 310 Blemhuber Avenue. Patricia Zerbel, 532 Harrison Street. That's the long list, but there are two lists. So starting over. Karn Anderson, 30 Elder Drive. Cassandra Angeli, 1879 M28 East. Tony Barras, 115 Carriage Lane. Emily Bray, 1414 West Fair Avenue. Mary Bullock, 2542 Werner. Mike Busick, 148 Brewer Drive. John Case, 1279 Lakeshore Park Place, Unit PB. Nicholas DeGrand, 1308 Cleveland. Kevin Dowling, 175 Bayou Street. Jimmy Lynn Gatz, 117 West Crescent. Jason Gauthier, 333 West Washington. Jeff Goodney, 835 Oriana. Laura Goodney, 1405 West. And Richard Goodney, also 1405 West. Kathy and Don Grisham, both from 903 Wilson Street. Kimberly Hongesto, 31 Specker Circle. Jenna Johnson, 260 Forest Hills Drive. Jim Johnson, 2050 Enterprise Street. Lois Campy, 612 East Michigan. David Cockler, 1879 M28 East. Scott Koski, 1710 Woodland Avenue. Thomas Legale, 609 Lakewood Lane. Scott Letts, 41 Stonegate Heights. Sandy Orlando at 54840 Alexis Court in Shelby Township, Michigan. Dan Pelto, 2332 Moran. L. Phillips and Nicole Phillips, both from 2849 North Crest Drive. John Prince at 3023 Island Beach Road. Vincent Rose at 620 South Lake Street. Burns Severson, 336 East Michigan. Tim Strom at 3060 Island Beach Road. Mary Jo Stewart at 420 East Michigan. And Tom Wallstrom at 113 South Front Street. That's all the public comment we have.
City Clerk, could you please tell us how many folks? I think I had a count on the first form letter that there were 12, and I could not keep track on that second form letter.
I can tell you.
I got to about 16, and I decided to just ask you after.
Yeah. I don't know if I broke those out. I did break them out ahead of time, but by rough count, we had 226 total.
226 total written comments,
Correct.
and then we threw, we pulled out 3 that didn't have a full address.
And that number includes 5 that were pulled out. So
5 were pulled out, and then we pulled out another one because they did a verbal. So 221.
it would be 220. So we had 226, 3 were pulled for no address, 2 were pulled for PO box.
Thank you. And of those 220, 219 supported, and 1 did not. Okay,
Correct.
and do we have anyone else for Zoom public hearing before I close the public hearing, since the public hearing is still currently open?
Unless Angela is able to unmute, then.
Do we have an Angela that would like to do a 3-minute comment for the public hearing? Okay, we will go ahead and close the public hearing now. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this item? Commissioner Mayer?
Your Honor, I think it might be worthwhile to consider suspending the rules for discussion. So I would like to move to suspend the rules.
Okay, do we have a second to suspend the rules? Commissioner Hanley?
I second that motion.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0 to suspend the rules for discussion. Commissioner Mayer, you made the motion. I'll let you start things off. That's how that works.
I'm going to pass on that.
Commissioner Hanley?
Sure. I would like to first thank everyone who reached out and gave their their wonderful support for Beacon House. I can say that I believe from personal experience, and most of the other commissioners on the board would agree with me, the Beacon House is a wonderful place to support, and none of us are questioning that. I do, however, question giving $450,000 of taxpayer money to a nonprofit when we don't offer it to every nonprofit in the city. There are many of our wonderful groups in the city that could benefit from $450,000, and I can't justify giving it to one if it's not to the others.
Commissioner Mayer?
All right. I think I was still processing Kyle's auction house reading over there. You know, I came into this meeting and I saw a lot of my opinion on both sides of this. You know, my wife, when she was about 2 years old, her family stayed in a house like this while she was being treated for cancer in U of M. And it's not that I don't understand the good that this can do, and it's not that I'm not sympathetic to it. I think it's a great cause. I think it's a great organization. But again, it is a lot of money to go to a nonprofit that primarily is going to be benefiting non-Marquette residents, and we're going to be using Marquette taxpayer money to do it. So I am very conflicted with this because again, I've spent hours discussing this with myself, and there's a lot, and it's a very complicated issue on top of it, and it's kind of hard to explain it, you know, to the public that maybe doesn't have all the background that we have on this. But I guess I just want to say that as far as just my thoughts right now. But thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Thank you, Your Honor. Couple points to make. I was keeping score in terms of where the letters were coming from. And while my count might be off by one or two, my count comes out as 102 people supporting giving the money to Beacon House from out of the city of Marquette, and about 120 from within the city. And that's not necessarily how we should vote or how we should obligate our decisions, but it is an indicator, I think, of people trying to bully the city commission a little bit. We're going to have a lot of names, we're going to have a lot of people talk, we're going to force you into doing this. And that's what I'm getting from this type of submission of recommendations and desires. When you go to pre-printed forms and common language between people, you plainly know that this is an effort being made to force an issue. And that's very unfortunate because, as Commissioner Haney said, it is a terrific organization that does a massive amount of good within our community. But as we look at the city of Marquette and what the city does and what the city charter obligates and the rules of the commission, et cetera, there's nothing in there that says the city of Marquette is supposed to provide free lodging to people who use the hospital. That's not our mission, that's not our job, implicit or implied. And this would make us partially doing that. It is also worth, I think, Your Honor, understanding that Beacon House took that property. They weren't forced to take that property. They had looked around the town, they had tried to find a place to put Beacon House, and they finally came and literally to the city commission and said, hey, we've got this hunk of land here that's adjacent to the hospital, which is where we'd like to be, but city commission, you have to change the rules of the brownfield to allow us to occupy that property. And the brownfield folks stepped up to the plate and they changed the rules of the brownfield. They changed the agreement letter of what we could do and couldn't do. That was specifically done. And the commission approved those changes because we felt too that this would be a good place for Beacon House. We knew we were taking the property off the city tax rolls in effect, and it would be tax-free property for the Beacon House. And for them to come back now and say, well, it's all contaminated, we have to have the money to fix that too. They knew that going in. That was not a surprise that anybody suddenly sprung on people. So we roll back now to the request of trying to get $450,000 of taxpayer money to fix that problem that Beacon House has. That's of their making, in effect, by selecting that property and by doing what they wanted to do. It is not our obligation as a city and as commissioners representing all the voters in the city to take that $450,000 that would be effectively employed elsewhere, if not paying back the bond and paying back into the revolving fund. It doesn't disappear. That $450,000 doesn't go poof if we don't use it. It goes somewhere within a system that would benefit our taxpayers the way it was intended to. So I think those are all things that we have to bear in mind. Because I, like others have stated, have a real fear that we should not be doing this for one if we do not do it for all. And I would particularly point out that when we had the high-rise fire and the folks had to abandon that building for a number of months, nearly a year for some of them, the organizations that stepped up to assist, Salvation Army, the Red Cross, did stellar work for the city and our residents. And if we were giving money away, that frankly would be the groups that I would look at in front of the line, and well, they would deserve. So, things to ponder, Your Honor.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. Kyle, thank you for all of your reading, and I hope your voice recovers. And Commissioner Stonehouse, we had the same count. Beacon House is certainly a significant part of our healthcare industry, and our healthcare industry is a huge influence on our community through direct jobs and business development, and our culture is part of it, is influenced by our healthcare. This is an industry that supplied me with a really nice career for over 35 years. I watched Beacon House grow from a small three-bedroom house for breast cancer patients in the early days to what it is now, and I'm very impressed. I know what their services mean to families and dealing with the loved ones' health care, and I really support Beacon House. For those of you who wrote in support of this, I hear your passion. So many of you are friends of mine. And I heard a lot of acquaintances, and I heard from people who I worked with in the healthcare industries. And a big part of my heart is with the healthcare industries. But this is not my checkbook. I don't have my personal checkbook here in front of me. Mary Dowling talked about the 900 residents who have already supported Beacon House, and I've been one of them. And I hope that every one of you that have written in to ask us to vote yes have written their personal check and perhaps write a second one. I look at this proposed amendment and consider my role as a commissioner. Our role is to utilize taxpayer money to provide essential services to our city. And we need to protect the health and safety of our residents. This means police, this means fire protection, the infrastructure such as roads and water and sewer. These are our core services, and we're always struggling to balance the city budget to get these things taken care of. The brownfield program is not intended to support nonprofit organizations through the tax incremental financing. And the city is not a philanthropic organization. I wish I could vote yes on this, but looking at my role as a commissioner and taking care of the taxpayers' money as we are assigned to do so, I don't see myself doing it. Thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Bonsall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to all my colleagues who've provided, I think, some very insightful comments. Coming into this meeting after a lot of thought and study and consideration, I was very undecided on this issue. And I think I kind of sympathize a little bit with Commissioner Mayer, perhaps, in that I still feel pretty undecided and torn on this issue. I have a lot of potential concerns about this proposed amendment. I think that probably the most essential or the most central concern that I have is about whether it would potentially set a precedent for the future. Because while I completely agree with the concerns that many of my colleagues have raised about spending taxpayer money to support a nonprofit, it's also not quite an apples to apples comparison, because it's not as if we're spending $450,000 out of our general fund, right? Like we're spending reallocating $450,000 within a brownfield plan, which is different. Some might argue it's a distinction without a difference, but it is a difference. And so my question, as opposed to my colleagues, as well as any city staff who might, feel appropriate that they weigh in, be in our personal opinions as commissioners, as well as, in professional opinion as city staff, would this be establishing a precedent, given the somewhat unique circumstances surrounding this situation?
Do we have city staff that might be able to take that one on?
And we do have our brownfield consultant on the line if you wanted to ask him as well. From the discussions I've had with the consultant, and looking at state law, it would be very difficult to produce another situation where this could happen again. This happened on land that was already approved under a brownfield plan. It had environmental contamination as a result of other brownfield work that was done on that property. And so since that property and this work was already included in that plan, it would be difficult to see a scenario where that would necessarily happen again. I'm not saying it's not possible. I could definitely point to maybe Cliffs Dow. Something like this could happen again. It's a big enough property. But it's not like, another nonprofit could just walk in and ask for brownfield funding. It would have to be under this very specific set of circumstances. So I'm not saying it's not impossible, but I'm saying it would be very difficult to see.
Well, Commissioner Bonsall, do you have any follow-ups? And I know Commissioner Stonehouse had his hand raised as well.
Sure, yeah. Thank you very much, Sean. And if Mac McClelland was willing to weigh in on that, that would be helpful. And then certainly interested to hear my colleagues' thoughts on this question.
Yep, happy to do so, Commissioner. Thank you. I'll just quickly say that brownfield dollars are in brownfield TIF is only available on brownfield eligible property. So it would have to be brownfield eligible property. It has to be contaminated, blighted, functionally obsolete, or historically significant or historically designated. And it only covers certain brownfield eligible activities, environmental activities to deal with contamination, and certain non-environmental eligible activities like lead asbestos abatement, demolition, site preparation, and infrastructure. So there's a limited circumstance, and that happens to be the case for the Beacon House, is that they are developing on brownfield eligible property that was established as part of the DLP brownfield plan. And secondly, the activities in which they're conducting are both environmental and those limited non-environmental costs of, in this case, site preparation are the primary activities, as well as some stormwater management for infrastructure. So it's a fairly limited opportunity and situation that could occur. Another nonprofit may be able to, if they're developing on brownfield eligible property and they have those brownfield eligible activities, but there would need to be another part of that development which generates that brownfield TIF dollars through private investment that could be allocated to the nonprofit. So it would be a fairly unique situation.
Thank you, Mac. Appreciate it. Any follow-ups, Commissioner Bonzel? I know we have Suzanne Larson wanted to speak as well.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. And I don't have any further comments.
Perfect. Thank you, Suzanne.
I just wanted to mention that from a purely legal standpoint, this does not create a legal precedent. You know, it might create a policy precedent where the commission has acted in a certain way and people then come make the argument that you should act that way again, but that doesn't create any legal precedent like it would if there was a court case involved or something like that.
Thank you, Suzanne. Commissioner Stonehouse?
Your Honor, I think there's some confusion here, and some of that confusion is, can it happen again? We're sitting here with the potential right now for a $50 million brownfield project that would be going into the Savings Bank building. That is every possibility of getting in the same position. We're also looking at something we're going to have to do with Cliffs Dow. That's a massive piece of property. Nothing would preclude a 501c3 from playing in part of that project. We certainly will have some brownfield exposure if we do something with the old hospital land. So we certainly do have the potential out there for having the same problem again. And while we may not have a legal issue with it, we certainly should have a moral issue with it. And that's really at the bottom of this, the morality of what they're trying to do, not just the slice of legality. And I would point out that when the Beacon House was given the land, when we made that proposition and that arrangement, it was specifically done with the understanding that they would not be applying for brownfield money, and the brownfield board was well aware of that. So I'm looking at this and saying, I'm not buying it, because I understand that if you've got an agreement made, not a written legal agreement, but an understanding that as we do this, you will do this, and now to have it come back on you of exactly what you tried to avoid happening, that's not a kosher way. No, that's a poor expression. That is not an acceptable professional way of acting. So I very much believe that we do have a quid pro quo going on. We do understand it can happen again. And regardless, it is still our taxpayers' dollars that can be applied against a variety of things within the economic system that supports the brownfield. We can put it in the revolving fund. We can legitimately use it for the purpose that it was intended. We don't have to make a special arrangement for Beacon House. Thank you for the time.
Pro Tem Hill?
My colleagues have spoken very eloquently today, and I also want to thank the clerk for his fine work in making sure that our public participation process is honored, and that's actually, I really, really, truly value that, and the many voices that spoke up today and spoke compellingly of the medical need and the incredible spirit and support provided by this institution. And to hear my colleagues who have been with this since the beginning and to know how much it's grown and how much support it has meant. that's a really, really valuable piece. What really got my attention was inadvertently. You don't decide about $450,000 inadvertently. I'm really disappointed that that is how this got to our attention. And I appreciate Commissioner Stonehouse bringing the full story of what has happened over the years, and then to have it come to us now inadvertently. We are stewards of our taxpayer dollars here, and I truly, deeply appreciate the support that folks have been provided, and the trauma of having medical issues and the need for care. And our country certainly has a long way to go to help make that better for everyone. And Beacon House is part of that. But as a steward of our funds, I hope that you can bring that incredible passion that you have for this organization, and that I wish you all the best in raising the rest of the funds. But the City of Marquette's dollars are allocated particular purposes, and I will be voting for that today.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Davis?
I just have a real quick comment for those of you who wrote in to support the Beacon House and don't fully understand the brownfield process. And it's easy to think, yes, the city should support this really wonderful organization because it has such an impact on our community. Those of us on the commission, there's some of us who have sat on the brownfield committee, and there's others who have been studying for several years, and it's not a simple process, and it's not a simple kind of a paperwork. I hope you hear the passion and the concern that all of us commissioners, we struggled over this, and I think every one of us supports Beacon House. But as we look at what brownfield is meant to do and what we as commissioners are bound to do to use the taxpayer money, this is not something that we are taking lightly. Just at some point, you're going to have to trust us that we're looking at this very seriously and really working hard to make the right decision for our community.
Anyone else before I have my comments to weigh in here? Okay. To the 220 folks who wrote comments, to the 25 people who either called in, Zoomed in, called me ahead of the meeting. So what is that? 245 people. That's the most public participation I've ever seen as a commissioner, and I've been on the commission since 2017. Part of that, I think, is the nature of COVID and the fact that people could do a form letter and mail that in. But I think also a big part of that is people are passionate about the Beacon House, and I hear that. I hear your comments. The commission is in a very difficult situation here. It's our job to be put in this difficult situation and weigh these difficult tasks, but I have to say that it's not usually this hard, and that's because we do care. We do have hearts. We know the Beacon House does a lot of great work, but we also have to uphold the job that we're supposed to be doing here. I also heard names of many neighbors, many coworkers, many friends, and that is difficult, but it doesn't change the nature of this job. And I need to vote in a way that I feel like I can stand behind, whether or not that's a popular opinion in the media with some folks. So I will be voting no, but I'd like to explain why. I know that Beacon House is an incredible nonprofit, and I actually have learned more in the last few months about the Beacon House than I ever knew before, and I would like to continue to learn more, and I would love an opportunity for a tour and to understand more about what happens there. I think that there may be other ways that, myself as mayor and us as commissioners can support the Beacon House, obviously with potential financial donations on a personal level, but also public engagement. And there are things that I think we'd be willing to do to help that wouldn't necessarily be this brownfield plan. But I think that the Beacon House folks and these 244, because we had one no support, folks need to understand that we have many great causes in Marquette County, in the UP. The list would be endless if we were to go down the line and say, you know, let's help. We would love to be able to help the Beacon House, help the homeless, help the animal shelters, help with, you know, housing of Pine Ridge, as Commissioner Stonehouse so positively remembered, that those folks really were struggling, and they were our residents, and I appreciated that perspective. What you do for one, you have to do for all. We have to treat people fairly, unless it's something that's in our strategic plan for what we want to do here in the city of Marquette. We've got 20,000 residents here in the city of Marquette. Our main focus is to provide city services: police, fire, water, plowing the streets in the winter, the snow plows, making sure that our streets are repaved, making sure that the infrastructure underneath is good to go so we don't have contaminated water that we're drinking, so that our stormwater flows safely to Lake Superior. Trash and recycling, working on our parks, arts and culture. We just had the presentation earlier today. We've got a lot of plans in our strategic plan, in our community master plan, and those plans are fed by a public process where the public tells us how to spend our dollars. So when we have groups after the fact that want us to spend our money in another way, and we have to say no, there's a reason. It's not because we don't want to. We have to follow the plan, spend the money where it's needed. One of the main responsibilities of the commissioner and as mayor is to make sure that the city of Marquette is fiscally responsible, and I will stand by that as long as I'm on the commission. So I will be voting no tonight, but I want to let you know that I have heard you. I'm not ignoring you. I know many of you, and I appreciate the fact that you were willing to write in and express your concerns. Any other commissioners? All right, let's go ahead and take a vote. This will require a roll call vote. Oh, thank you. Do we have a motion on the item? Sorry, I thought we had one on the table. Commissioner Bonzel.
I move that we adopt the resolution approving the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital Brownfield Plan Second Amendment for the Beacon House and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the resolution.
Just to confirm, you move that we approve the plan.
Yes, that we adopt the resolution. Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second on that motion? Do not see a second on that motion. I'm going to look at the city attorney here. Does that just mean that the motion dies on the floor? Do we need another motion?
That is correct. The motion dies and you need a new motion.
Okay. Do we have a new motion? Commissioner Hanley.
I move that we do not adopt the resolution approving the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital Brownfield Plan Second Amendment for the Beacon House, and we do not authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign that resolution.
All right. So for this, do we have a second? Commissioner Stonehouse.
I will second the motion, Your Honor.
All right. And could we please have a roll call vote, city clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? I didn't allow
sorry.
for discussion. I thought that we had enough discussion, but I was mistaken because we've had a couple of things happen. And I will allow Commissioner Hanley, you were the motion maker, any discussion? Commissioner Stonehouse, any discussion at this point?
No.
And I saw Commissioner Bonzel's hand. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a couple clarifying questions. So seeing as this motion is to not approve this resolution and this plan, then if we were to vote yes, we would be voting to not approve.
Correct.
And if we were to vote no, then we'd be voting against this motion.
Correct.
And then, okay, thank you. And then this is perhaps one for our city attorney. Do we need, given that the initial motion to approve died on the floor because of lack of a second, do we need a motion to not approve this?
I would follow through because otherwise you have an open agenda item that you've not taken any action on, and you need to take some action on the item.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other discussion? City clerk, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bonzel.
No.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley.
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Motion passes 6-1. At this point, the brownfield plan for the Beacon House will not be happening. All right, moving on to item number 5, consent agenda. Do we have a motion on consent? Commissioner Stonehouse,
Your Honor, I motion to accept the consent agenda as written.
do we have a second? Commissioner Hanley?
I second that motion.
Any discussion, Commissioner Stonehouse?
No
Commissioner
further, Your
Hanley?
Honor.
Anyone else? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes. It's a
All
roll
opposed?
call, Mayor.
Oh, it's a roll call? I'm sorry about that. This will require a, what
The
is it?
stormwater.
Because of the
on page-
stormwater.
Yeah.
Okay. This will require a roll call vote. City Clerk, could you please conduct that for me?
Commissioner Bonzal,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to unfinished business, item number 6, discussion Savings Bank Brownfield Vault Project. And I was thinking for this one, we would just need a motion to suspend the rules for discussion. Do we have a motion as such, commissioners? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Your Honor, I motion to suspend the rules for discussion.
Thank you. And do we have a second, Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
I second the motion.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. And I believe we still have Mac McClellan on, who I think is going to start this. And we also have John Julian on the call, who is one of the owners of the Brave Works company for this Vault Marquette project idea at the old Savings Bank downtown Marquette. Go ahead, Mac.
Thank you very much. This project was introduced at your May 10th meeting, and since you had a light agenda tonight, we thought we'd come back a little bit. One of the things that was expressed and heard was that the project was kind of fast track and moving a little bit quick, and so what we want to do is the developers have kind of taken the time to meet with some community members, as well as presentations to the Brownfield Authority last week. We've been making presentations to the DDA in June and the LGFA when we can get on their agenda to kind of talk through the project a little bit. But what we wanted to do is offer an opportunity. You were introduced to the project. You've had a little bit of chance to think about it, to discuss it, have an opportunity for you all to provide some input, ask questions, kind of talk through it a little bit. I think that John and Jen have some introductory comments. Barry's got some new images to share, but we really wanted to take, I think, some quick time to hear your input on it. So I'll turn it over to John and Jen and Barry quickly, and they'll go through a couple of things, but then we can open it up for discussion.
Great. Thank you, Mac. Thank you, John and Jen, for joining us again.
I think you guys are muted, John.
Sorry about that. Yes, and thanks for having us tonight, and we'll try to keep this brief and allow for input. So again, we're thankful for the opportunity to have an input session from the commissioners. And as Mac mentioned, hopefully have some time to digest what we were talking about and kind of our project as a big picture. And as he mentioned, one piece of the feedback we received was the feeling the process being rushed. And with that, we've decided to take some additional time to be able to have these conversations in a public format so that we can all have a higher level of comfort with the project. And to that note, we've also taken this additional time to further engage with many of the community leaders and stakeholders to make sure that their voices are heard and represented in our plan where possible. And with that, we also wanted to share a quick screenshot from the MDC.
Yeah, so today the MEDC shared on their Facebook page a little story about the Vault Hotel, and we thought that was unique in that we could share that with you today. They're showcasing it as part of their National Historic Preservation Month. This is the Vault Hotel in Houghton, and it's MED-supported unique redevelopment of a historic downtown bank, which resulted in 17 boutique hotel rooms with various guest amenities, including a speakeasy conference room, revitalizing the 15,000 square foot iconic 132-year-old building in downtown Houghton completely transform the vacant and long time underutilized space. The economic and pedestrian activity resulting from the project directly reflects the community's vision of cultivating downtown as a center for retail, dining, and historic rehabilitation. And although we know these communities are very different, we hope that you see the potential here as well. So we want to give you a brief synopsis of where we are with our neighbors. The neighboring businesses were one of the main decision factors when we started looking at the idea of bringing the Vault Hotel experience to Marquette. Having the famous Elizabeth, the Veerling, nearby Donkers, Iron Bay, Sol Azteca, and the amazing retailers in the downtown businesses that are walkable to this development is a key ingredient to the success of the experience we're trying to provide, which is not a cookie cutter franchise hotel. At the Vault Hotel, a large part of what we provide is the experience not only inside of our doors, but also the experience guests enjoy as they explore Marquette. The success of our neighboring businesses is something we have a massive interest in. So between Barry and ourselves, we've connected with the majority of the business owners on our neighboring block. And the project, whether it's additional guests staying or enjoying the downtown, ability to maintain view sheds and increase public use through the scale and viability of the project with the brownfield plan, or the addition of 220 new public parking spaces where public access doesn't exist today, is certainly a win for downtown, its businesses, the residents, and the public, and we hope you can see this vision as well. One of the key features the brownfield plan provides is the opportunity to build the public parking and maintain view sheds for our neighbors with a scaled-back development that fits in, and the opportunity for public assets with brownfield contributions on this site are very beneficial. We're going to let Barry further describe those, and then John has a couple comments here as well.
Yeah, and like Jen said, Barry's going to go into some of the details about the public aspects, but we wanted to highlight that, it's a free-flowing and fully public 220 parking space facility, and where the hotel and the residential components will be tenants of that parking structure, thus allowing for the maximum use of the structure of a heated indoor public parking space in downtown Marquette. And then just to highlight that the majority of this brownfield plan is for public uses only, and Barry will be able to share some of those details with you here in a moment. And I just wanted to close with, we're here to create a meaningful and positive impact on Marquette's beautiful downtown and the community as a whole. This project still has several phases that we need to continue to navigate through, but on the back end of these processes, we have a shovel-ready development team of some of the best architects, designers, and lenders ready to move forward with this exciting project. Between our development team, the City of Marquette, which includes the DDA, the Brownfield Authority, and the LFDA, and in collaboration with the MEDC, Vault Marquette will undoubtedly be an award-winning hospitality experience. And we feel this is something that Marquette truly deserves and can be really proud of. With that, we'll let Barry show you some updated images and explain the design.
All right. So just a couple images here to refresh the project. Of course, the Savings Bank is the honorable stalwart, the corner of downtown Marquette, and this is the real basis for this whole design is to pay respect to that building. We use it we're going to convert all the space in the Savings Bank to hotel use, except for the very first floor street frontage. And then we're going to add, using the form-based code, we're going to build completely within what is allowed on the property, with kind of step down East Washington and around the corners. Let's go to the next image. So what we have on Lakeshore Boulevard is the parking lot we all walk past. I park there, and we're going to transform that. We're going to fill that and make it really the front door. I've said this before about Founder's Landing. It's really traditionally, Marquette has turned its back on the harbor, but now it's our front door. So really the harbor experience is what really draws the most people to Marquette. So we're giving it a front. And again, we're working totally within the existing fabric of downtown Marquette and using the vocabulary of materials and colors and forms. So that's enough of that. Next image. So what we want to focus on tonight is really just the public improvement aspects of the brownfield. As John mentioned, this is predominantly public-funded improvements from this brownfield plan. We're only looking to capture any environmental conditions if they're even there, and we're in that process of determining. But we're really looking for the majority of these dollars going to public improvements. because that's the opportunity that's being presented. Is this is a way for the city to couple the MEDC dollars to really get a more bang for the buck with these public improvements in this project. The number one, the largest aspect, the largest public part of this is the parking structure we're proposing. As John mentioned, it's 220 spaces, 100% public parking. Any use of the parking by the hotel, by neighboring businesses on a regular basis will be by lease, and the DDA or city, however you decide to operate it, will have that revenue stream along with whatever paying situation is put in place there. The residential will also be paying that monthly lease for the parking. So it's absolutely open parking throughout. Let's go to the next image here. This is a very complicated design. I've spent 3 months with my brain, and so I know it really well, but it's a big puzzle, big giant puzzle. So I'm just going to show you how this parking actually fits on the site and how we're hiding it behind a new storefront, new facade on Lakeshore Boulevard. What we're looking at here is the lowest level of parking. This is actually one level below Lakeshore Boulevard. It's at 610 is the lowest level. The lake is currently 602, so we're well above the lake. No concerns there. And there's this structure. There's 4 levels, and the center portions are sloped, and you'll see that as we go up. Okay, let's go to the next one. Also, what you're seeing here is the yellow area. These are the other public components of this, primarily the circulation space. Coming in off of Lakeshore Boulevard, we'll have the vehicular entrance and exit for all the public parking. And there'll be pedestrian entrance there. There'll be a circulation, vertical elevators, stairs will be on the Main Street and then also the East Washington side. So those will stack up and people can get out and up. You can see again that we're coming up another layer, okay? Now you can see the entrance forming off of Lakeshore. We're going to make that a nice tall space, 2-story, all glass. So we bring a lot of daylight, and we actually have views from the parking to the lake. It's another little public bonus. You can see the commercial space that we'll be creating along Lakeshore. Again, following the form-based code, we have to build to that property line with commercial. And then there's a space around the corner on East Main. Right down in the corner is a maker space, which is another element that's been requested. So again, we'll go up another layer. Now we're getting up closer to Front Street level at this point. Now you can see on the left-hand side of the image, we've actually stopped the parking below this, and we're putting in a green roof. And we're doing this to preserve the view from the Veerling. And this will be a nice view. You can see the Veerling's windows. Those are drawn accurately. So we're really staying down below that view shed so that they maintain a great view to the harbor. Again, our basic premise day one was to respect the neighborhood, and that's what we're doing. Okay, you can see another element that you're going to start seeing here is between the Savings Bank building and 107 South Front. We can see the drive that we're proposing to come in. This would be a hotel guest way to check in and get into the parking. There's also kind of a reddish orange line that you see there. That's actually a pedestrian route that'll be covered, that'll walk right up to Front Street from that highest level of parking. So it'll be very convenient, no matter where you park, to really walk in and out of the structure. Next image. Okay, now we're up on top of the parking, and you can see the green areas. These will be green roofs, and you can see that the central section, we've left it low, again, respecting Elizabeth and 107 South Front. And we have you can kind of see ghosted images of the forms, but let's go to the next image. I wanted to keep those lights so you can understand the views that we're actually creating here. The space between the hotel building and the residential building itself is 62 feet, which is the same space between the buildings on Washington Street. And as we all know, that's a beautiful view of the harbor as you come down Washington. This is the view that will be created. We're also going to be be constructing a new balcony setup for Elizabeth's, because their current one will be behind that building. We're going to move it over and put them at the end of that nice big view space. Let's go one more. This is a section cut. I guess to help you understand the way we're stacking that parking, and then you can see that nice open space down the middle between the hotel and the residential, in the backs of those buildings, the Elizabeth's balcony and 107's existing balconies. We're staying even well below their first floor. One of their mezzanine levels, you can see the smaller windows below. Those are actually bedrooms in that building, which will still be open to that open air space. Another element of the design that we're really working with is we're going to touch the savings bank building very lightly, and we're creating a glass atrium to form the circulation space for stairways, elevators, and the little walkways to and from the savings bank. And you kind of see that portrayed in this section. So go on here. You know, the other thing we looked at when we started this whole thought process was, let's see what downtown is really looking for. So we went to the 2020 downtown plan that was just put together. We thought, well, let's incorporate the elements that are contingent to this property, and let's put them in the brownfield plan. Let's get it funded. It's a great opportunity. One of the schemes or the elements identified was to redevelop Main Street, particularly down as it approaches the harbor, and to create an arrival point down at the harbor. And so we're proposing that element will be included in this brownfield plan. Next image. This is along Main Street. This will be kind of the primary, one of the four ways to walk in and out of the parking. This is right up at Main Street in that space behind the Burling and Elizabeth's. Part of this would also be enhancing the Main Street corridor. So there's a nicer walk, a little wider sidewalks, and a little better amenities along that. Next image. This is the maker space was included in the downtown plan. So we're proposing that behind the commercial on Lakeshore around the corner will be this 2-story high. It'll just be built like the parking structure, just a nice raw concrete space with good lighting and nice big windows. So the activity inside will be sort of entertainment for the outside as well. It's a real public sort of interactive space. Next. Another element that was identified was making a stronger connection between downtown and the harbor, particularly Madison Park. At the Bell Tower location, it was proposed that a Native American gathering place or something paying homage or respect to the Native Americans, but more like an amphitheater type space, something on that order. But we're going to include that in this plan as well. And on these elements that are truly public space, what we're proposing is that the DDA or the city, however you want to do it, but there would be a totally public process for the design of that. Design charrette, whoever does it, we just want to make sure the public is totally involved in what that becomes, because those are truly public spaces. Next. This is that element that was added. This wasn't in the downtown plan, but of course it's an element that the DDA really wanted us to include, and it does work out very well. So as you get to the highest level of parking, you can just walk right out to Front Street through that space between the buildings. And we're actually going to construct a bridge that'll sit down on the lower level of the ground, which is well below Front Street, where the trains used to run. And we're going to build this elevated drive and walkway, and then you bring in some of the historic forms from those railroad years to form the entrance into the vault itself. Next image, last one. This is just kind of a view of the Front Street side. Again, the beautiful savings bank building, this glass atrium, and then the hotel forms behind that. So that's all I have. We'll certainly answer any questions. We understand that this takes time. It takes several times looking at it, but we're more than willing to keep doing this. Answer anything you have.
Jerry, this is Mayor Smith. I have a couple questions before I open it up to the commission. Could you please go back to one of the first slides where you had a picture of the current parking lot and then what it will look like? I was wondering if you could go there and kind of go back and forth, like, wait 3 to 5 seconds and go back and forth just a few times. I think that's like, just go back and forth.
Sure.
'Cause that's something that I was trying to visualize, and I think this back and forth helps the best.
Yeah. As I mentioned, we're following the form-based code, and actually the form-based code would allow us to build that 5 stories all the way along Lakeshore, but we chose not to, and we also chose to set back along East Main. But these forms do follow the form-based code. By design, you break it into smaller pieces that look like individual buildings, and interact. But the true form-based code is to create street space. So you have a 2-story minimum, which is what we have here, and then we set back to go up the extra stories on the Lakeshore.
Thank you. 2 more questions, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the commission. When I'm looking at this slide, on the left, are those more hotel spaces, or what are those up higher, above the makerspace?
That's all residential there. We have 36
Residential,
units planned.
thank you.
And from that's residential.
So those would be condo
small
units.
This is what we found. No, well, it'll be apartments. They will
Apartments?
be rentals. That is the plan. Yes, apartments. And they'll be small scale. So they really are for the market that we're finding in Marquette, downtown Marquette, is really a lot of single people who are just small little places. So.
Do you have any estimate at this point how much one of those would cost a month?
We're going to be, I can speak to that, Barry. Yeah, I mean, these units will be a market-based rent, and the units are probably going to be between $13.50 a month for some of the smaller Studio Ones, and going up from there up to some of the 2-bedrooms that we're still working on some of the price points just in how they lay out in the property. But you can imagine they're going to be incomparable to the price points of 1 Marquette and 2 Marquette Place.
That's the term they use now.
So that's what's on the left. On the right, the Savings Bank building itself would be a hotel. The white building, is that also hotel?
Yes.
And then,
All the buildings, sorry, go ahead.
oh, that's okay. And then the gray building kind of in front of that is also hotel, right?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure because they're different colors. So I was, yeah.
Well, but
That's the form-based code requires you to change the facade every so many feet.
Thank you.
So under the gray building, where you see the arched windows on the 2nd level, that's an event space for the hotel. So weddings, anything like that. And that has an outdoor patio, if you can see kind of on the front, on
Got
the
it.
steel railing.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, last question, and I'll let others jump in. Sorry, I had a lot of questions coming into this, and I think the updated slides help. How many parking spaces are currently there? And I know you said there'd be 220 once this project would be done.
there are 0 public spaces there right now.
Okay, how many parking spaces are there?
I believe there are it's under 80 right now on the surface, and but it is completely private parking.
Okay. I will turn it over to the commission. How about we start with Commissioner Bonzel and go down the row here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try to be brief. My first question would be, are we intending to have another discussion like this at our next meeting? Because if so, I have some questions that might, I might wait on in the interest of time, as it's, almost 8:30.
I think that's up to us, honestly. She just stepped away for a minute, but
Yeah.
It's up to us to decide how much more we want to talk about this. I don't think I'm making a leap there.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. In that case, I'll just ask one or two of the most pressing questions that I had. I appreciate Mayor Smith bringing up the questions about, are these going to be rentals or condos? What kind of, how many bedrooms, the rental rates, things like that. My question was, was consideration given, and perhaps this is more of a question for the, Brownfield Authority and for MAC, was consideration given to asking for some of these units to be affordable for households, perhaps in that workforce housing range, maybe 80 to 120% of the area median income? I only ask that given that, housing is a big topic of discussion right now in the city. And affordable and workforce housing is a priority for future residential and mixed-use projects in the MBRA project priority policy. So that'd be my first question.
Well, I can address that, Evan. First of all, this is all private property. It's a very expensive piece of property. The current owners of the savings bank and the parking lot are, very interested in getting full dollar. So you have an economic dilemma day one. There are no brownfield incentives that we can apply to this project for housing. So, and I've said this before, and maybe you've heard it, but we found this out at One Marquette Place. It was quite easy to fill it. It's 100% full. We've kept the rents basically the same as we started. And the majority of the people living there moved from somewhere else in Marquette. They were living in Turtle apartments, or they had houses in Marquette. And so the market for this downtown housing really tends to be older or younger. We have both ends. And people are using it as a way to, empty nesters to get out of the house, put the house on the market, give it an opportunity to become something else, or up other rental places. So adding stock of any kind helps the entire housing market. That's just an argument. And it's something we've seen true wherever we've done higher end housing, is that there's a trickle through the community, and it frees up stock.
Evan, I'll kind of answer the answer, from the Brownfield and Brownfield Authority. It certainly is a priority in terms of providing, the opportunities for workforce housing, as is a number of other priorities in there, including public assets. This particular project kind of rose, and it's still going through the evaluation process, and primarily with you all. It sort of rose in that priority process by the provision of having a 220 space public parking deck. That was really the primary issue. Brownfield TIF can only reimburse certain eligible activities, and that is, for those environmental and non-environmental activities. There is a unique aspect that we're working on in other projects in the city that might be able to write down land costs, to provide some of that component, but that's reimbursed back to the landowners. And so, there's really limited capabilities for the Brownfield Authority to affect the market for the projects, but certainly has that as, I think, a priority, as, hey, can we provide this opportunity? There are some places where it works. There are some places where other kind of priorities in that policy, like the public asset, the public parking deck, rose to the top, and that certainly is the area here, the case here.
Okay, thank you both for that response. I do appreciate it. To follow up on Mayor Smith's question, so there are going to be 220 parking spaces created. It's been stated that all of those are going to be public. I believe 100% was what was stated at the previous meeting. But my question is, realistically, you have 36 residential units, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, some studios. Those people are probably all going to want parking permits. There's also going to be hotel guests who probably are going to, perhaps the hotel, is going to want to have parking spaces reserved. So my question would be, how many of these spaces do we think are realistically going to be available just to the general public at any given time? And what do we intend the hours of operation of the garage to be as well?
I might just chime in for just 1 second. One of the ideal arrangements here, one is that the hotel and to some degree the residents utilize those parking spaces in off hours that aren't typically the downtown needs. During the day, these are, all off hours at night, so it fits well. And I had the experience, in a couple of decks in Traverse City where we had to allocate some certain spaces for certain uses. And the problem is that those are only used at about 30% of their capacity. If you leave the deck open and allow for people to park where they wish, the capacity of the deck is actually the effective capacity is much greater. So there will be use by the hotel. They'll be leasing as folks would as a permit. There'll be folks, maybe downtown employees, that will be, buying permits so that they can park in this location. And the residents will too. And I think that one of the advantages here, like Barry had talked about, is that mostly the lower level would be, sort of spillover. That'd kind of be the last place that most people would park, but would be the place, I think, where the residents might want to park and have access to their places. So I think it would provide for a pretty effective downtown parking lot. Certainly there would be leased spaces by the hotel and by the residents for a number of people. We can certainly talk with parking consultants about that, but there wouldn't be any reserved spaces that says this is a spot and you can only park there. It would all be open and available to match the flow and capacity.
Yeah, and I think part of what Mac mentioned is bringing in, with the DDA, bringing in a consultant that's going to help with the flow and the operations so that we can maximize on that parking, because I think what would be a shame is to build parking for a hotel that is not being utilized during what has already been determined as the peak parking demand for downtown. And that's really one of our goals here, is to try to make this parking deck as utilized as possible.
Okay, thank you for those responses as well. Madam Mayor, I don't have any more questions that I wish to ask at this time. I would only hope that we will have at least one more kind of open discussion like this in the future, because there are a few more, but in the interest of time.
Yeah, I would say that it seems like we are learning more about the project, asking a lot of questions. I'm not getting a sense from the commission that we're ready to act on this very quickly. I know it's hard over Zoom to see the reactions on the faces, but I just wanted to express that to you on the call. That's what I'm perceiving here. I think it's a really interesting opportunity, but I don't sense a rush on the commission to get this done. Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And to follow up on your comments, I have to say that this project both excites me and scares me. Barry, this is obvious. Your talent is just incredible, and the fact that you spent 3 months designing this, speaks to the difficulty. I think it really dresses up that area, but I also know that we get a lot of criticisms for the massive buildings and it's no news to you, is it, Barry? About the massive buildings, and I think this version looks a little better than the first one we saw. So I appreciate that, and just I think we're all used to seeing space. But let me my main concern that I have right now is the traffic and the traffic patterns. And we all know that Lakeshore Boulevard is a very busy street because we all like to drive by it. Getting into the restaurants there is, there's always people crossing the street. So I'm wondering what thoughts you have given to just what kind of traffic, we're going to put more residents there, we're going to put hotel people there, and what's going to happen to the traffic on both Washington Street and Lakeshore Boulevard, and how can we manage that so it's safe and still available?
One thing that'll help a lot is simply building to the street line, forming it so it feels more like a downtown street. Because right now, I have my office on Lakeshore Boulevard and watch cars go by here at 45, 50 miles an hour because there's no place to stop. And by the time you get by these parking lots, you're just in an open zone. So, and it's very hazardous. This will actually slow the traffic. That's the intent of form-based code, is to create a space that you understand to be urban downtown space. And just to touch on the forms, Sally, like I said, we're following the form-based code. The intention of the code was to build this sort of density. We are squeaking by at the minimum that we can build with this design scheme. And those decisions were made long ago through the Planning Commission when they wrote that downtown code. So We have to build we're meeting the minimums on the frontage and the intent of the density that was being looked for. So.
Yeah, and I agree, I like the idea of the density, and I like the idea of the building in its entirety. I just foresee some criticism, but it is mostly the traffic that concerns me at this point. And so I'll just throw that out there and move on.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely ways to address that, and a lot of the traffic, maybe going in and out of this structure will be going slow. We'll have to go slow to turn in and out of the structure, and so I think that will inherently slow cars down. The other bonus about density in a downtown is that a lot of this ends up being walkability.
Yeah.
So it's a very, it makes the downtown a much more walkable, accessible area.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Hill. Commissioner Hanley has passed in her comments.
Thank you. Couple of things. I second Commissioner Davis's concerns about traffic. I'm also thinking about the turn out of the little road that goes down to Thills. I'm not sure if that's still an extension of Main Street or what that is, but when you're coming out of that parking lot and turning onto Lakeshore or trying to cross to go onto Main, what if we have cars backing up that are trying to turn left into the parking garage? That to me looks like a potential place where how many cars could actually be waiting to turn left? One car wants to turn left into the parking garage, and then you'd have cars backed up. Then you'd have cars backed up at that intersection behind. That's a traffic design question. I'm sure there's code for that. The distances between, entrances and intersections. And I'm sure you've probably thought of that, but this image brings that to mind. Also, the question of electric vehicles and having charging stations ready. You need to build that in now, particularly if you're going to build in the DC fast chargers, which is really what you should be doing to meet the coming demand. They're going to stop selling internal combustion engines in 15 years. So this design needs to incorporate that in every way that you can. And from what I know, that you're going to need to bring the BLP in sooner rather than later, because there's probably going to be the need to upgrade pretty significantly for that demand for DC fast chargers. And then my other question is, this is actually the same thing we saw before, right? It hasn't changed from what we saw last time, or is it different?
The design is evolving, and it will continue to evolve.
Okay.
I'll keep working it to look better and better.
Okay.
Solve
That makes
issues, also solve, and then, it's a refinement of the design. It's a long process.
Yeah, I understood. And so my other question is going to be in managing those flat roofs and managing that green roof with the water and the snow load. I'm sure you've also thought about that, but then I am going to want to understand where all that water's going, particularly with some parts of the parking garage that are under street level. I know you dealt with that in one Marquette place. I would at some point in the future be interested in learning a little bit more about that. Thank you, and I do really appreciate your time.
We actually have a very, very detailed plan for this, and it's a system we've kind of came up with on a few other jobs. But we use a green roof to absorb and hold an immediate rain. So you get a downpour, that rain just goes into the plant and the soil mix, and of course we designed the structure to hold all of that weight. And then then the water flows down into, and we're creating a large cistern down under part of the unusable wedge in a parking structure. We're going to use that volume as a place to store water. So the storm water goes down into the cistern, and then it's just metered out. It might take several days after a 4-inch rain, some of the extreme rains we've seen in the last few years. But we'll have that capacity to hold that water and then slowly let it out into the system. So it's a pretty innovative system through that.
That's really good to
I
hear.
just wanna
Thank
make
you.
a comment. We certainly do intend on the electric charging stations, hoping that we can work with the city to make sure that those happen. Those are also really important aspects to any downtown, so.
Yeah, and especially a hotel, and we're even seeing that as well as Houghton, we're looking at installing our own private DC chargers for that exact reason.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mayer?
All right, so my first question is either for John or Barry. What is the square footage for one of these 1,350 suites? The apartments. You said they're the one-bedroom studios. Sorry, I believe you said it was 1,350. I was just curious what the square footage was for that.
We're just over 400 square feet on the studios. The one bedrooms are 620 to 650. And then there's a couple of two bedrooms that range from 900 to 1,100. So that's the sizes. You know, the other thing that we're working with here was we really wanted to keep these buildings as skinny as possible to preserve those views. So that's so they're going to be very efficient.
All right, and my second question, I'm going to re-ask it for Commissioner Bonzel because I don't think it was actually answered. What is the actual number of parking spaces when you take the residential and the hotel parking spaces out of it?
Well, it would depend on the time of the day, but let's say the hotel is at full capacity and the residents are at full capacity. And it's
Yes,
nighttime.
that's what I'm looking for.
Cars are in there. Yep. So worst case scenario, you're at 95 hotel rooms, which typically is one car per room, and then 36 units, which would typically be one car per unit allowable in a parking structure like that. So 89 public spaces would then be left empty or, usable by the public at the peak of the usability of the parking garage.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
From other hotels that we own, we have another large hotel with over 100 rooms. We do see empty parking lots most of the day.
Yeah, and I think a great example of that would be to drive around at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and look at hotel parking lots, and you'll realize that they're probably going to be less than 10 to 15% full, and the unique times in which they're going to be 100% full are going to be rare. And a big thing we wanted to promote with the living downtown is the walkability of downtown, and hopefully our residents don't all need to have vehicles. And that's a long-term play as well as that evolves.
Okay. And I would like to say that the design itself, I think, looks pretty impressive, and the kind of layout and looking all the different layers, that was really awesome to show us that so we could get a better idea of what we're looking at. Again, I think I said our last time we talked about this, I see a lot of potential with this, but I'm glad that we're continuing a discussion and getting some more questions answered, so thank you.
Mr. Stonehouse, and then we got to wrap this up.
I will wrap it up, Your Honor. Boy, it's got to be tough when everybody's a critic, right? It's really got to be difficult. Suggestion is you might rethink putting anything more into Matson Park. The city has been extremely reluctant to see that happen. So I think that might be a hot button in terms of trying to put the gathering place into Matson. You might look at an alternative site or an alternative purpose. I'd love to see a bar on top of one of those big flat roofs. I think that would be very nice to be, and I'm serious, to be there in the rain, in the moonlight, to be there when the UP 200 is running past the corner. It would become a real gathering place with opportunity, and I think you ought to just think about that. I would also suggest thinking about where the bus stop is going to be, because the city of Marquette is working very hard for trying to get some sort of mass transit going in the city, and that obviously means a bus stop. It's easier to plan it now where that point would be than it would be in 5 years. Lastly, do we have any estimate how long or how fast or what the construction schedule of this would be? from
So
start?
we're hoping, if all goes well, we're really hoping to be able to break ground on the parking structure, because obviously that's kind of what has to happen first. Our development schedule is we're hoping to do that coming into early to late winter. And being that work is primarily heavily civil involved, it would be something we could have happen during the winter months. And we're looking at, we want to be done with the hotel construction within about 18 months of breaking ground. And, we hope to be done with all the construction, the residential and the hotel, within 24 to 30 months of breaking ground. So we're going to try to get it done as fast as possible. And just even from a perspective of how to do it, we kind of have to, because there's the lack of laydown area, and when we're developing the parking structure, we're going to have to be really setting the pieces up for both the hotel and the residential components. The work inside of the historic savings bank building likely will not commence for probably another 10 to 12 months at this point, or 10 to 12 months once we start the construction of the parking structure.
Well, the concern that I'm trying to express is how long it's taking other construction in the city, that it's dragging on for years and years while progress is being made. The road is disrupted, travel is disrupted, traffic is disrupted, and you've got a relatively unsightly project going on that, while certainly will be a great thing when it's finished, is taking an inordinate amount of time to get to the point of being finished. So I think that's a sensitivity issue that we would want to be comfortable on, to commit this much of the city to being disrupted for any considerable period of time.
Absolutely.
Yep, and we understand that, and we have worked currently are working in downtowns before, so we really respect that, and we're hoping that, our neighbors will understand how respectful that we'll try to be, and make sure that everything happens really safely.
And we've also already engaged with some of the neighbors on the timing perspective, and that's a huge reason why we're trying to get this construction started this fall from a civil standpoint, is to get a lot of that work done in the fall, winter season, when, past prime tourist season, when these restaurants are slowing down, looking at November, December, January type for some of those heavier civil activities, to lessen the disruption to the business in downtown. So it's a concern we take very seriously.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time and for the detail you're providing.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, could I just add a couple quick points, if I could, with respect to brownfield? In this particular case, this is another kind of one of those situations where it's unique to this space. And I wanted to emphasize that, again, John and Jen have worked with MEDC. We have preliminary positive feedback from MEDC, but this provides, in essence, half of the dollars for the public parking facility would be paid for by the state through state tax capture. And so it's unique to this particular space. Other locations, downtown wouldn't have this ability to, have a larger develop like this that could pay for the parking deck. So I think that's an important consideration in looking at this. This is a unique situation that we can get half of a public parking deck paid for by the state. The other part about that is that it's not going to be a situation where the parking deck has to be financed in hope that there's going to be development, which is also kind of a situation that for another project is built someplace else. This project, the parking deck, would be acquired as like a condo unit after the project is built out. So we'd have an idea that there's going to be TIF revenues, and we'd probably know pretty close what those TIF revenues would be once that parking deck would be purchased. And so I think those are pretty significant advantages on this side with the brownfield. One is that it doesn't have to be acquired until after all the project is built out and we know that it's going to be built out. And the second is half of it will be paid for by the state over time. And that's a rare circumstance, or that's not the situation that I'm aware of for many other kinds of locations in the city. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mac. We had one quick follow-up from Commissioner Mayer. Go ahead, Commissioner Mayer, and we're going to wrap this up. We're not going to have a lot of time for additional comments.
Sorry, I just need to follow up because I honestly forgot to ask, and Commissioner Stonehouse brought it up. Being the one tribal member on the commission, I should probably ask, if you're going to do the Native American gathering area, who are you planning consulting with for actually doing that?
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I think that's an allowance in the brownfield plan, again, to be able to gain 50% state funding for a public improvement. I don't think that the developers are necessarily considering doing that work, that this provides the funding aspect for that to happen, that the DDA doubles the DDA money actually in terms of being able to develop those pieces and do that. We will be able to get approval from the state for that in the brownfield plan and Act 321 work plan. And so that will provide a revenue stream. The actual development of those two activities, I think, will be, DDA municipal operations. And you guys can add on to that.
Absolutely, that was correct, Max. We would set, that aside in the brownfield plan to make sure there was funding for that. And then, we hope that would be a public process or something that the city would engage with the public on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. City
Manager Mike Angeli wanted to speak.
I want to be relevant for a few more minutes. That's all. No, I just want to ask Dennis to give you a brief, to close out this conversation. He's on Zoom, to give you a brief timeline of the approval process here, because what you're going to be asked to approve in the end is the brownfield plan, and that's it. A lot of what you're discussing is going to go through other approval processes, such as the Planning Commission and things of that nature. So by the time it gets to you, a lot of this will be dealt with. And don't forget, the DDA has to approve this all before it even goes to the brownfield. So Dennis, if you wouldn't mind, would you explain when the Planning Commission gets involved?
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. I'll just cover it very briefly. This is governed by the form-based code section of the Land Development Code, and that process is relatively simple. I think Barry's kind of hit a home run with this here, and he knows the form-based code inside and out. That was done based on community charrettes, and the community told us what it wanted, and he's pretty much addressed that. From the preliminary reviews we've seen with staff, he's meeting most of those conditions. There might be one or two little tweaks there, but this one should go through the Planning Commission fairly quickly. And you can hold me to that, Barry.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We've got to get going here. We've got several items we still have to cover, and our meeting has to be done by 10 o'clock, or we have to do some really special meeting rule changes here. So sorry, but we've got a really, really full agenda tonight. We haven't even started new business yet. We really appreciate you joining us. I'm sure we'll be hearing more with the process as things move forward, and we'll look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 8 under new business. Thank you. We're not even at new business. Number 7, Founders Pile Reuse Construction Contract. City Clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor. As part of the brownfield plan for Founders Landing, various public improvements were planned to be funded through the plan. The final public improvements required for the Founders Landing development project include redevelopment of the pier and reuse or removal of the existing piling structures. The project area is located on Lake Superior, east of and adjacent to the Founders Landing development and south of the Lower Harbor Ore Dock. The north set of piles are directly east of Barraga Street, and the south set of piles are east of the Hampton Inn. GEI Consultants of Marquette was contracted to conduct a feasibility study in August of 2018 and found reuse of the piles as 2 public piers to be feasible. The City Commission held a work session on the subject in April of 2019, where GEI presented the pier concepts and findings of its feasibility study. At its March 4, 2019 regular meeting, the City Commission approved GEI Consultants for the preliminary design phase for the Founders Landing Pier project. Since that time, the public has had opportunities to comment on the ongoing design at the Harbor Advisory Committee, the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, the Marquette Public Art Commission, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. A work session with the City Commission and GEI Consultants was held on May 22, 2019, where a reduced scope project was presented to stay within budget. At its regular meeting on July 29, 2019, the City Commission approved the construction contract with Kokosing Industrial contingent upon state and federal permitting. Since that time, permitting at the state and federal level has dictated that the design be changed to allow for littoral water flow, effectively swapping the use of each pier. With this change, the southern pier will now provide day-use parking for personal watercraft, along with possible event space and the proposed sail-shaped sunshades. The northern pier will provide the accessible kayak launch and lake viewing window. The contract with Kokosing Industrial was never executed since the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has yet to approve the final permit. Due to the design changes and the extended timetable of the project, Kokosing Industrial came back with a proposed 40% increase in costs and concerns about meeting a 2021 construction schedule. Based on this, GEI has been working with J.F. Brennan out of Duluth, Minnesota to value engineer the project to meet the city's budget. Both Kokosing and the city have formally agreed to dissolve our previous relationship for this project. The City Commission held a work session with GEI and J.F. Brennan on February 18th, 2021 to discuss reducing the length of the northern pier and adjusting the size of the southern pier to meet the budget. At that work session, staff and GEI determined the commission would like to see both piers built with reduced lengths and the full width of the south pier for possible event space. This site plan is attached. Having determined that there was no advantage to competitive bidding because of work already completed by J.F. Brennan in conjunction with GEI, staff recommends the City Commission waive the bidding process and award the construction contract to J.F. Brennan for construction of the piers at a not-to-exceed amount of $5,670,000. Staff has worked with the city attorney and J.F. Brennan to develop the contract. Fiscal effect: adequate funding has been allocated through the Founders Landing Brownfield TIF plan. Recommendation: approve the construction contract with J.F. Brennan Company, Inc. for construction of the piers at a not-to-exceed amount of $5,670,000 and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement once required state and federal permits have been issued. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Your Honor, I motion to approve the construction contract with J.F. Brennan Company, Inc. for construction of the piers at a not-to-exceed amount of $5,670,000 and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement once required state and federal permits have been issued.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Bonzo?
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Stonehouse, any discussion?
I think we've discussed it long and hard, Your Honor, and it's time to take action. Thank you.
Commissioner Bonzo?
None at this time.
Other commissioners? I would just like to say we've been working on this for a few years, and I'm really, really glad to see this finally on its way to be constructed. Thank you, Mike and staff, for making that happen. All right. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. New business. Number 8, appointment of Director, Financial Services. City Clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor. The city manager recommends the appointment of City Treasurer Mary Schlicht to the position of Director, Financial Services effective July 1st, 2021. Department head positions are the equivalent of administrative officer positions under the Charter and City Code. The appointment is to fill the vacancy created by the retirement of current director, Gary Simpson, on June 30th, 2021. Mary received a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting from Northern Michigan University in 1999. After working 6 years as a governmental auditor at Anderson, Tackman & Co. in Escanaba, Mary was hired by the city as the staff accountant in 2007 and was promoted to the city treasurer position in 2015. Mary is a registered CPA and is a Michigan certified professional treasurer. Mary's education and extensive background with municipal finances, especially those of the city of Marquette, make her uniquely qualified for this position. As the department head for financial services, Mary will oversee the treasury, finance, and assessing divisions of the city. The city charter provides that the city manager appoints administrative officer positions subject to confirmation by the city commission. Fiscal effect: the fiscal year 2020-21 budget has sufficient funds to cover this appointment. Recommendation: confirm the city manager's appointment of Mary Schlicht as Director, Financial Services, effective July 1st, 2021. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Commissioners, do we have a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
I move that we confirm the city manager's appointment of Mary Schlicht as Director, Financial Services, effective July 1, 2021.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Hanley?
I second that motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill, any discussion?
I just want to say thank you to Gary for the tremendous work he's done over the years to put us in the strong financial footing that we are in. And I really am glad. I hope you have a wonderful retirement, well earned. And thank you and congratulations to Mary. And I'm looking forward to working with you in the future.
Commissioner Hanley?
Ditto.
Any other commissioners? I just wanted to echo Mayor Pro Tem's comments. Gary has done a tremendous job over the last 20-plus years in the city of Marquette. We will certainly miss him. I hope he enjoys his retirement. And I'm very excited to hear that Mary Schlitt will be our new Director of Financial Services. I know her personally. We went through Leadership Academy in 2015, and she has a very rational and easy to understand thought process, and I'm really looking forward to working with her on the budget and other financial tasks moving forward. So let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item number 9, appointment of interim city manager. City clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor. Current city manager Mike Angeli will be retiring effective May 31st, and incoming city manager Karen Kovacs will assume her position on June 7th, leaving a roughly 1-week vacancy between the two appointments. City Charter Section 5.4A states the City Commission shall appoint a city manager within 90 days after any vacancy exists in such position. Outgoing city manager Mike Angeli recommends Assistant City Manager Sean Hobbins fill the role of interim city manager for this purpose. Customarily, the interim city manager's salary has been increased by 50% of the difference between the current manager's salary and the individual's current salary for the period the role is assumed. Fiscal effect: the fiscal year 2020-21 budget has sufficient funding for the additional salary necessary for the interim city manager position. Recommendation: appoint Sean Hobbins as interim city manager for the period of June 1 through June 6, 2021, and approve a salary increase for this period of time equal to 50% of the difference in current city manager salary and assistant city manager salary. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Davis?
Sure. I move to appoint Sean Hobbins as the interim city manager for the period of June 1 through June 6, 2021, and approve a salary increase for this period of time equal to 50% of the difference in current city manager's salary and assistant city manager salary.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Mayer?
I second that motion.
Commissioner Davis, any discussion?
Only that I'm really glad that Sean is so prepared to step into this position.
Commissioner Mayer?
I couldn't agree more with that, and I'm very confident that we'll be just fine.
Any other discussion, commissioners? Thank you, Sean, for stepping up. We really appreciate it. We're in good hands for that week, and we'll glad to have you on, continuing on. You do a great job. We appreciate you. All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Number 10, appointment of new city manager. City clerk, could you please read this background?
Thank you, Mayor. At its May 10th, 2021 meeting, the City Commission voted unanimously to offer the position of Marquette City Manager to Ms. Karen Kovacs, and the Mayor appointed a subcommittee to negotiate a mutually acceptable employment contract. Negotiations have been successfully concluded and contain the following essential terms and conditions: a base salary of $125,000 per year, a $50,000 term life insurance policy, a $6,000 annual car allowance, and the same fringe benefit package as city department heads. Ms. Kovacs' contract also includes a one-time payment for relocation expenses of $7,500. The initial term of the contract is June 7th, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. Fiscal effect: sufficient funds are available in the fiscal year 2020-21 budget for the position. Recommendation: appoint Karen Kovacs as the Marquette City Manager, effective June 7th, 2021. Approve the attached employment contract and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the contract. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Hanley?
I motion that we appoint Karen Kovacs as Marquette City Manager effective June 7th, 2021, approve the attached employment contract, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the contract.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Bonzel?
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Hanley, discussion?
I'm just very excited to have Karen join the team and get to work.
Commissioner Bonzel?
I agree with Commissioner Hanley, and I'll also have some nice things to say about Mike at the end of the meeting, as I'm sure we all will.
Any additional discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. feels good to finally have like the new city manager actually in place. I've been kind of waiting on a few things, so it's a sigh of relief. We'll miss you, Mike. I will. I really will. All right. Number 11. We've got 3 left here. Presque Isle Park food truck resolution. This will require a roll call vote. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. The Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee, PIPAC, has held a number of recent discussions about the number of visitors to the park, including the subsequent impact on the natural resource. One major part of that conversation involved the operation of mobile food trucks in the park. PIPAC has recommended limiting food truck activity in the park in order to limit generator use, traffic congestion, and litter, which has been found throughout the park and could damage wildlife and Lake Superior and impact user enjoyment. The city clerk and city attorney have reviewed the recommended resolution, which prohibits mobile food vendors from Presque Isle Park, with the exception of special events or the private rental of city facilities. Marquette City Code Section 35-9 gives the authority for the City Commission to identify permissible times and locations for mobile food vending in the city. Item 6 in the attached resolution is updated, and Item 8 is new. Fiscal effect, none with this action. Recommendation, approve the attached resolution to identify appropriate times and locations for mobile food vendors and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign it. Alternatives, as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a motion? We don't have a motion.
I'll move approve the attached resolution to identify appropriate times and locations for mobile food vendors and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign it.
Do we have a second on that, Commissioner Bonzel?
I'll second that motion.
Discussion, Commissioner Davis?
I really don't have much to say, but I know that the Presque Isle Advisory Committee have studied this quite extensively, and I know what their concerns are, and I appreciate that they are recommending this to the commission.
Commissioner Bonzel?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would only ask if we have consulted with the food truck vendors and if members of PIPAC brought up any specific concerns about this action at the meeting.
City staff? I'm not sure.
I'm not aware of consulting directly with the food trucks via PIPAC. I'm not sure if the city clerk has any background on that in his dealings with the food trucks. But I would, I guess, say that PIPAC has studied extensively the impacts. We have a lot of pictures of the traffic flow concerns when the trucks are out there, and then obviously the noise concerns when people are trying to enjoy the what we consider to be our most pristine, most I guess rustic park facility within the city. So those are concerns, but their primary concern that we hear a lot of feedback on has to do with the litter, and that's not necessarily anything that the food trucks can control. They're required to have a receptacle there, and they all do. But it has to do with the public interaction, what they do after they leave that area, and the interaction with the wildlife, taking that litter and moving it elsewhere. So, with the existing facility, I think Presque Isle has done a really good job of looking at Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee has done a really good job of looking at all those scenarios. And I'm not sure if the city clerk has any additional feedback from his interactions with the food truck.
Thank you, John.
Commissioner Hanley?
To go on that, I did reach out to some of the food trucks in the area when I saw this on our agenda, and one of them did point out, do they pay a fee to park at Presque Isle as part of their food truck fees that they pay in the city? One of them mentioned that there's a fee that's included for parking there. Is that a thing?
I can answer, I guess, what they pay as far as the food truck fee goes. I don't know if there's some additional Presque Isle related thing I'm not aware of. No, it's an annual licensing fee that food truck vendors pay. It is $460 a year, I think, at this point, and that gives them the ability to vend on designated public property, which is what's in the attached resolution, during the times identified, or basically on any private property in the city where the property owner gives permission.
Okay.
There's no additional parking fees or anything like that.
And my other question is, if trash is the main problem of it, did we look at possibly putting up more signs, working with the food trucks to get more receptacles to use trash and recycling versus immediately jumping to taking away an option for them to park? I know a lot of these places, we do have quite a few there, but we have quite a few food trucks as well in our area, and finding places for them to park where they can make money in the short time that they have available to them in the summers, I fear taking away one of what could be one of the main places for these trucks.
I'll briefly weigh in that historically PIPAC has been pretty averse to any additional signage on the island. So that may be part of the difficulty there. I don't know about the receptacles. Maybe city staff can weigh in on that piece. I'm not sure. John, do you mind to chime in?
Yeah, we do have ample receptacles throughout Prescott. I can't tell you the exact number. I suppose it would be, possible to add additional ones, but at this time, they're not being utilized in the way that that we would hope they would be. The other piece of it is that there's oftentimes seagulls and other things take that food that it's attractive to them, and then they distribute it throughout the island. The pictures that we've received, and PIPAC has reviewed, having to do with the complaints surround litter, but also massive congestion at the area. One of the things that we've thought about as an alternative that might be, consideration in the future would be if there was the additional parking area added to the park system that is across Moody Energy as you're headed out to the island, that might be a good, suitable alternative.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Stonehouse?
I guess I'm inclined not to support the resolution because I'm looking for additional background material. I don't recall having seen the notes from PIPAC as to what they've studied, what their options were, where they thought the problems were. And I do feel for the food trucks that are trying to, frankly, earn a living, and it is pleasurable to be able to be at the parking lot in Prescott and get a hot dog. That's kind of an American thing to do. And I would question, John, without any knowledge at all, how you identify the garbage from the truck as versus other garbage that people bring in. Again, I feel removed, but I'm being told to penalize somebody for something that I'm not sure I understand the scope of the problem.
John, do you want to weigh in? Yeah, go ahead.
I can respond. So as these things have come forward, it's fairly easy to identify, wrappers and food receptacles that came from various different trucks. They all have certain things. And obviously any litter on the island is not, we can't attribute it all to any one source. But the fact remains, and what PIPAC has really studied and looked at, this is an issue that as we look at increased use, increased visitation, this is something our national park systems have to deal with constantly, and state parks to a certain extent as they become more popular. These areas that are beloved by the community, they are intensely loved, and to an extent, we try to do sometimes almost too much in these spaces. When something becomes as beloved and as well-liked and as highly used as Presque Isle is, we start to see these overuse scenarios where we have to, unfortunately, take some of these actions that limit the things that are causing the adverse effects to the island. So PIPAC has looked at this. They've had probably the last 2 years worth of meetings have discussed this in some detail. And I know you guys get those minutes as they come through. And this is one of a whole slew of rules and public outreach that PIPAC is looking to do. A lot of it is covered by ordinances that exist, and there's a few additional things that we'll be bringing forward to you in the next several months. But this is one that doesn't require an ordinance change, and it's somewhat of a simple thing to keep our resource as pristine as we possibly can. And I know it's a difficult conversation to have, but all resource managers that manage land as popular as this eventually are faced with some of these tough decisions.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
I'm wondering, and the reference to the multiple actions that PIPAC would like to have changed, it would be easier to see the whole package and understand. I have talked to PIPAC a number of times in the last couple of months about even starting actually back in January, as we started to understand what the tourist demand or use demand, it's not all tourists, it's a lot of locals too, coming to Presque Isle. Rather than a one-by-one, what would be the impact if we tabled this and at the next meeting or the meeting after we had the entirety of what PIPAC wants to do presented to us, and we could look at the whole thing and understand what they want to do and have that opportunity to see that in the whole? And I'll put in a little plug for something I said earlier today, which is I'm also very concerned with our very dry conditions that we're having this year. They're particularly concerned about the forest management and the fire management plans that we have, and seeking to understand those. And if we did table this into a future meeting, would that be possible to address all those things at once? Would that be harming any operations at this point?
So PIPAC has identified this as probably the one last major enforcement thing that can't be enforced at this time. There's some smaller ones. So the list of changes really is probably about 25 things, and most of them are covered by ordinances as they're written today. And then there's a couple of tweaks. So the reason it's brought forward in this manner is this is not an ordinance change. So those other 4 changes, I believe it's 4, would be coming forward as a package. They would involve a public hearing and then a vote at a subsequent meeting after that to make those changes. And one of them does have to do with fire danger and limiting that possibility. And the other 3 are some simple changes. But this was brought forward because it is something that is easily done with a resolution and is a high priority to PIPAC. So that's why we separated the 2 out.
Other commissioners? Well, we have a motion on the table. I don't know if we want to take a vote on that motion or if there's a motion to push this to a future meeting. I'm not sure what the commission wants to do. I'm not getting a strong feeling one way or the other. Should we go ahead and vote on the motion that's on the, no?
Might as well vote on it.
You have to vote on this motion before you can take any other motion.
So we'd have to vote it down to table it?
You would have to vote it down and then make a new motion to table it.
If that's what's up, yeah. Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Appreciate it. Commissioner Mayor?
Suzanne, correct me if I'm wrong, the only alternative to that is if one of the 2 individuals that made the motion rescind their motion, correct?
That is correct, or if they move to amend their motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a little cloudy. It was on the side of the table. I don't remember who made the motion. Thank you. That's where I'm struggling. I'm getting through. Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote. This is a roll call vote. So, City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call vote? And the motion on the table is to approve this resolution.
Yes. Commissioner Bonzal.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley.
No.
Commissioner Mayer.
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
No.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Is that 4-3 yes?
4-3.
I was having a real hard time tracking that. I support this as I clearly voted that way, but we've gone round and round on the food trucks. I think at the end of the day, for me, the pristine nature of Presque Isle is what needs to be preserved here. And I get that that's difficult for the food trucks, but there are many places that they can go. That's my thought on that. Anyone else want to weigh in quickly on that?
If given the opportunity to clarify, thank you. I fully support the PIPAC, but I am concerned about the process of this, and I really would have preferred to see the whole thing, even though it would have come in pieces. It just is hard. I think that area has very specific concerns. It has its own committee. I would prefer going forward to see that handled as a unit.
Got it. Sean Hobbins wanted to speak on this.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, we were considering having a joint work session sometime in June or July to discuss the pending issues. We've had a very full April and May, as you're all aware. This is something I think that we thought could get done right now because the other issues are kind of more public hearing heavy. So I think that's kind of something that's going to be planned in the near future.
Thank you. Appreciate that. No, sorry. Commissioner Hanley.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that I totally agree with keeping Presque Isle wonderful. I just think that it would have been fair to rope in the food trucks or to try and find different ways to handle certain issues that were there as well, instead of just going to this. And I'm sure that they didn't leap to it, but in the fact that no one had any say of what food trucks or vendors had in this town, I feel is a big statement there. You should definitely be looking at them when you're changing their livelihood.
On to item 12, renaming John Jack Reynolds Athletic Complex. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. In March of 2021, the Reynolds family approached city staff with a proposal to rename the North Marquette Athletic Fields Complex to John Jack Reynolds Athletic Complex. Jack Reynolds was a player, coach, and volunteer for baseball in Marquette. He dedicated himself to the game, the players he coached, and the baseball fields along Presque Isle Avenue. Unfortunately, Jack passed away in February, and his family and the baseball community have rallied to dedicate the North Marquette Fields Complex in his name. His son, Chris Reynolds, has submitted a proposal along with a petition signed by over 1,000 of his supporters to rename this complex. Jack spent countless hours improving the fields, donating his time to ensure that everyone would have safe, quality baseball fields to play on. Jack also led the way to rename Field 2 to Gerard Haley Memorial Field to honor a player who had passed away from cancer in 1998. If passed, the Reynolds family and the baseball community would start a fundraiser to install a sign at the baseball field in his honor at no cost to the city. Per City Commission Policy 2005-01, naming parks and recreation facilities, the request was forwarded to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. At their April 2021 meeting, the board reviewed the request with supporting documentation. After discussion, the board voted unanimously to support the request to rename the facility. Fiscal effect, none with this action. Recommendation, approve the request from the Reynolds family to rename the North Marquette Athletic Fields Complex as the John Jack Reynolds Athletic Complex. Alternatives, as determined by the Commission.
Do we have a motion? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, I motion to approve the request from the Reynolds family to rename North Marquette Athletic Fields Complex as the John Jack Reynolds Athletic Complex.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Hanley.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Stonehouse, any discussion?
It is a well-deserved honor that is his due, and I'm proud to be able to have made the motion.
Commissioner Hanley? Any additional discussion? I will only add that Jack is my neighbor, so I will be glad to tell him that this happened next time I see him go down the street. Commissioners, let's take a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Number 13, We Energies waiver and property transfer. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. The Wisconsin Electric Power Company, WEPCO, has determined that the Presque Isle Power Plant is no longer needed to continue operating the utility and has commenced the demolition of the Presque Isle Power Plant buildings, machinery, and equipment in accordance with the requirements of Marquette City Code Section 10-65, Removal of Materials. Section 1065A states that all buildings and structures must be completely razed and removed from the site, including parts of the buildings that are above and below grade. However, Section 1065B allows the city manager to waive all or part of the requirement regarding below-grade materials and infrastructure. WEPCO has requested the city manager waive this requirement as it significantly increases the cost of demolition and site restoration without adding commensurate value to the site. There are two conditions included in this waiver. First, the presence of the below-grade materials and infrastructure must be recorded in the chain of title as a notice for the future owners of the property. Second, WEPCO is the sole responsible party for the removal of the below-grade materials and infrastructure if it is determined that removal is necessary at some point in the future. As a consideration for this waiver, WEPCO has agreed to transfer ownership of the portion of parcel 0510130 located on the lake side of Lakeshore Boulevard. This transfer would add approximately 1,000 feet to the city-owned, publicly owned lake shore in the city of Marquette for no financial cost. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, authorize the city manager to complete the property transfer and sign the waiver according to the authority granted in Section 1065B of the City Code. Alternatives, as determined by the Commission.
And do we have a motion? Last item, meeting takers. Anyone? Commissioner Stonehouse.
I must be batting cleanup here, Your Honor. But I motion to authorize the city manager to complete the property transfer and sign the waiver according to the authority granted in Section 10-65 Bull Leg B of the City Code.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Davis?
I second that motion.
Commissioner Stonehouse, discussion?
I think this is a wonderful opportunity, Your Honor, to continue to add to our public lakeshore, publicly accessible lakeshore, and we need to take it.
Commissioner Davis?
You know, it's too bad this is so far into a very long meeting, but I think it's very significant because we are adding 1,000 feet to the city lakeshore, and that's one of the things that has been a commission priority for many years. So I support this.
Other commissioners? Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
And I just want to make sure that folks understand that this doesn't absolve We Energies of future contaminant. If there is things that they are responsible for, they would continue to be responsible for them. Unlike, I think, unlike the Cliff Dow situation, we're not also taking on the there's no contamination that we're aware of, and that we're not taking on a problem area. This is the area on the other side of the road where we are getting, as Commissioner Davis said, beachfront. That will be a space for us to enjoy, recreate, and enjoy Lake Superior.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Bonzel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have just a few clarifying questions about this. So first, this one might be for the city manager. Do we know if there could be any subsurface materials or infrastructure on the Presque Isle power plant property that could contribute to additional environmental contamination or public health hazards in excess of those that already exist? Like, in other words, like, is there any potential cost to approving this waiver and allowing that infrastructure to remain for the time being?
Not for us, or not for the city. The deed requirements are that if they put the property up for sale, it has to be noticed on the deed that the foundation is there. And any potential buyer then would have to deal with it, whether that be building over the top of it or removing it. It's my understanding that all the any related environmental issues will be addressed by the current owner.
Okay, thank you. And as a follow-up to that, do we know, so below parcel 0510130 that we're hoping to acquire through this quitclaim deed, are there any subsurface materials we know of below that parcel? And would this, would the same principle apply? Even though we're taking ownership of the property, any liability in the future would remain with We Energies?
I'm not aware of any subsurface problems there, but the liability would be ours if there are.
I just want to point out that there is an intake pipe there that is part of We Energy's permit with the Army Corps of Engineers and Eagle that will still be in place. It's part of their stormwater management. This is something that they have an easement for and they will maintain, but something does exist, in that area. But it is something that they will have to maintain.
Okay, thank you. So other contamination that may exist on that parcel, though, we would assume responsibility for moving forward.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then my last question, so I noticed that in the quitclaim deed, there's, I won't read the whole thing in the interest of time, but basically we're giving up our right to potentially take civil, legal action against We Energies in the future. Due to any kind of environmental or public or human health or safety conditions that could arise. I mean, does that apply to just this parcel we're acquiring or to the entire Presque Isle Power Plant property?
The quitclaim deed is only for the parcel we are acquiring, and we are only, these terms only apply to that parcel.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. I appreciate it, Suzanne.
Other commissioners? Let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Second public comment session of the evening. Do we have anyone for public comment?
We have, was Tanya Peters? Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out. The only other person still on is Frank Walsh, and I don't know if he was planning on commenting.
I don't believe so. He's
Okay.
been
That's a no,
communicating with
then.
me prior to this meeting. We appreciate his services very much. All right, comments from the commission, and as a reminder, commissioners, back to item number 1 on our agenda. Our city manager is retiring. This is his last meeting. Please send him off with some very kind words. Mayor Pro Tem Hill, we're going to start with you and go that way.
All right, thank you. And I actually think you said it really beautifully in what you said to him with the ceremony, and the projects that in particular that you have brought forth and the leadership that shows to make those many actions happen are really a testament to the legacy that you've brought to this community. And I think, the legacy that you're leaving here is tremendous and will last for many, many, many years.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, Mike, I haven't known you as long as many of my colleagues here, but in the time that I have gotten to work with you, I think that your leadership does speak for itself, and the progress that has been made while you've been the city manager is extraordinary. And the fact also that you have stayed with the city for 45 years, I am just speechless by that. That is... But truly, thank you for essentially your entire professional life of service to the city of Marquette, and for responding to my random emails, regardless what time of the day it is, and for just always being there in kind of that advisory and even at times a friend role, like the mayor said, and just kind of doing the best you think you can do as a city manager. So I really appreciate it, and I'm happy that I got to work with you.
Mike, just remember, starting June 1, every day is Saturday. And treat it as such. But on a very serious note, the mayor went through all of the property and all of the major projects that you've been able to accomplish in the last, literally just probably 5 years. And that has been a remarkable record. And of course, what we did tonight with We Energies is just one more little crown on top of that pile. And for that, the citizens of Marquette should be forever grateful, especially for those who value our lakeshore and value the critical development that we're having. For those of you that don't know, Mike bleeds Marquette. If you cut him, that's what's coming out. And that's just really one of our own. And to have the honor of having him as our city manager has been, I think, just absolutely remarkable. And certainly he's become one of the finest men that I've ever had the opportunity to ever work with. And I mean that, Mike, very, very sincerely. So please enjoy your retirement. I'm enjoying mine.
Commissioner Bonzel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything my colleagues have said, but I want to offer, the mayor read a long list of your many accomplishments and contributions to our community. But I think what often gets forgotten are, the human relationships and the impact you have on people who live in the community, who work for you. I mean, that's how we got to know each other from the time I was a little kid with my mom working in the police department when you were the chief. And I know she always thought of you as one of her favorite bosses that she's ever had. And I've been honored to be able to work with you now as well the last couple of years. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that after that list of public accomplishments, there are many more private contributions and impacts that you've made. I think that you provided a steady hand in an unsteady time for the community. And for that, I'm very grateful, and I think you have the gratitude of the entire community. So thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Waiting for that. Thank you, Mayor. Since it's commission comments, I really have to comment that it feels so good to sit here without partitions between all of the commissioners, and those of us who are fully vaccinated don't have to wear masks. It's great. I also want to thank our city clerk, because he seems to have played a starring role tonight, and I hope his voice is restful tonight. And Mike, when our mayor presented you with the certificate, I thought maybe I saw a little bit of emotion, and I hope that there is some, because there certainly is for the rest of us. 45 years is a long time to spend within one small professional footprint geographically. And 93,600 hours of work for us. And that is if you kept a 40-hour work week. And I don't think you have. So thank you for your many years on the police force. Thank you for agreeing to be our city manager at a very critical time for our city. I agree with everyone that the long list of things that you have navigated us through, but everyone seemed to forget that you also have navigated us through a new way of driving through all those roundabouts. And you really have set up, through mentorship of your staff and just the work with the commission, you've really set up our city for a positive future. So, as a city resident, I appreciate your leadership and your commitment to our city. As a commissioner, wow, I really appreciate the practicality you have, the objectivity you have, your insight, and your ethics, and your ability to navigate all the relationships that you do. So all of these things are of utmost value to us as we make the right decisions for the residents. So like everyone else, thank you so much for being who you are and serving the city.
Commissioner Hanley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't get to work with Mike very long on the commission, but I do value the fact that you're a great source of information every time I turn to it. And I'm also very happy that I still have your cell phone number, and I don't think you plan on changing it. So don't think you're getting out of it too easily. Besides going on about your accomplishments, I do want to touch on one other thing. Though we did vote down the Beacon House thing, I do want to encourage everyone, especially everyone who wrote letters to us in support of the Beacon House, to show that support in a different way. Beacon House can still be built this year if we all donate and all open our own wallets to it. We don't have to do city money to do it. We can do our personal. So I encourage everyone who wrote a letter to do the same thing and write a check to Beacon House, and encourage you to support them in that way. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to say happy last meeting, Mike. We have some informal celebrations later this week, so we will continue that on as time goes on here. This is not the last time the commission will see you, but publicly it is. And I will turn it over to you for your last city manager comments.
Well, according to the commission rules, I've got 21 minutes.
I really hope you don't use all that time.
I was hoping you'd get done early. No. Again, just to thank you all. It's been a great joy for me to work with the city, in the city that I've grown to love. And it's been very exceptional. I've been very fortunate throughout my entire life and my career, with things kind of breaking my way in many occasions. You know, I've had the opportunity to be acting city manager, interim city manager. I've been the police chief. You know, I've been able to do a lot of different things, and I really have appreciated those opportunities. I want to thank you both all for pushing my last two projects through tonight. The piling project. I've been putting a lot of pressure on John in Community Services and George Meister over at GEI to get that thing done, and I think they'll be happy that it's gone along too. And also the beach, I wanted to get that out of the way too. I hope I've always brought you, well, I'm kind of proud I've always brought you projects that you can support. I know that in times past, the public often or from time to time criticizes commissions that always vote 7-0. They see it as not being very, I guess, interacting or whatever. But, you know, from a city manager point of view, I've always tried to bring you things that would get 7 votes. I mean, I very seldom have something been brought to you that either wasn't voted completely up or completely down. So most of the time up. And I'm rather proud of the fact that I could bring you things that you all could support. And that's kind of important as a city manager. I mean, I never wanted to segregate a commission to try to have 4 or 5 against 2 or 3. It wouldn't be any place that I'd want to work. And I don't think any other manager would want to work in a situation like that as well. But and it does take some effort. And I really have to thank the staff again. I mean, Sean, and as you can tell just by his responses tonight, he knows what's going on here. Suzanne, thank you for taking Ron's spot. I do appreciate that. The original plan was for me to retire first, and then Ron was going to stick around to keep things in order and appoint you. And Commissioner Davis, a dirty little secret is that I wanted to retire a few years ago, but your husband wouldn't let me. And I had no idea that you'd be here or that he'd be dumping that on you. But, you know, and I guess the last thing I'm going to say is I've had a couple of very long, nice conversations with your selection to replace me. And I think you've made a good choice. She seems to be solid, very intelligent, and very anxious to get going here. She's young, which I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just don't wear her out. Don't break her before she gets, you know, a few miles on her. So anyway, but thank you all very much, and I'm sure I'll see you all again. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We will be honoring you again in a couple days here. Like I said, it's a private event, but yeah, rest assured that we are sending him out with all the pomp and circumstance he deserves. All right, we are adjourned at 9:44 p.m.